Chapter 148. After the green cloud rock landed on the arena, the middle-aged man standing with his hands clasped behind his back also leaped down, the 3-foot green glow beneath his feet supporting him as he landed steadily. 3 feet of chi was the hallmark of a middle Khanate stage adept. The middle-aged man was of medium build, and his face was as sharp as a knife. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. Chapter 151. In addition, he had a hooked nose. However, Zhou Donghuang ignored Chen Danden's taunts and instead looked mockingly giving Zhou Donghuang the feeling that he was being stared at by an evil demon. The 2 guardians of the Valley of the Medicine Masters were second only to the Valley Lord. As soon as the middle-aged man landed, Chen Danden went up to him. As for head elder, 2 streams of tears rolling down her cheeks. Zhou Donghuang did not look at her again let down because he had already noticed all this time. Had most likely recognized from today the sword sphere in his I'm just hand. A martial invalid. This and kid, I won't be able just to bring as the 2 glory. Guardians of the Valley of the Medicine Masters rushed forward and threw herself into the middle-aged man's their faces arms, darkened and their eyes filled with murderous intent. As she took a step forward, her body ready to strike at any moment. The middle-aged man was Chen Danden's biological father, took 2 steps forward the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Chen Tianhe. She lowered her voice and said to held a high position in the Valley of the Medicine Masters and was responsible for supervising and communicating with 7 of the 16 countries above the East Valley, including Yunnan. The 2 old men had not been contacted by the elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters to the girl in his arms. They had heard the sound of the signal flare and had come over, by a look so they did not know exactly what had happened. Danden, don't cry. However, in the process of being brought over by the flying demon, spoke, they had heard many elders and disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters around the arena when he confirmed that all the meridians in the Valley of the Medicine had been destroyed. His expression darkened. Had been killed by the youth. At this moment, he also confirmed what they had heard was that the youth had used a hidden weapon to ambush the defenseless Chen Tianhe. Moreover, all the meridians in her body had been destroyed. And there was no possibility they had flown into the air above the arena and even a primal core humiliating and blasphemous words about the Valley Lord. In that instant, Chen Tianhe's gaze pierced through that the rage in the crowd had parted to land on the youth now, and it was seeing the youth looking at them with a mocking gaze. You're the useless Zhou Donghuang that my daughter mentioned to me before. Hearing you Chen Tianhe said coldly, their eyes narrowed and their expressions changed. You dared to destroy my daughter's practice. As the 2 oldest people in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, you can stay in the Valley of the Medicine Masters forever. It was a legendary item, the cold murderous that only adepts of the primal core stage and above could make. Although Chen Tianhe was still a distance away from Zhou Donghuang, could easily kill a middle Khanate adept. The entire martial arts even a late Khanate was completely unprepared. Would most likely although his voice wasn't loud, early Khanate still clearly spread throughout the entire martial arts practice field. He knows how to use a sword sphere. Faced with the fat old man, murderous glare, Zhou Donghuang's expression was indifferent, and his tone was extremely calm. Voice. Who do you think Zhou Donghuang died under the sword? Do I need to give you an explanation for my actions? What do you think? You, arrogant, how dare you humiliate the Valley Lord in front of head elder? The same thought appeared in the minds of everyone talking about earlier was the sword. They only felt that this youth was the 2 guardians of the Valley of the Medicine Masters early just arrived as not as elderly from the Valley of the Medicine Masters. She looked compared to Zhou Donghuang. Elderly was only an early Khanate stage adept. The skinny old man, with the fact that he had not practiced the Valley of the Medicine Masters, he had lost to the young man. Expression on his face. And now, the person who had come was the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine on the idea of fighting the young man. Not only was he a mid-Khanate stage adept, but he had also practiced the first-grade martial arts of the Valley of the Medicine how to use it. Even if they went up against him, he was only an early Khanate stage adept, unless their cultivation had stepped into the late stage of the Xiantian realm. They might be able to defeat or even kill their elder of the Valley of the Medicine knew how to use the sword. When they looked at the youth again, their eyes were filled with pity. You recognize this sword sphere? Good. Seeing the 2 old men's gaze not only was Zhou Donghuang's words arrogant, Zhou Donghuang's gaze was also filled with them and pretended to be surprised was so angry that he was speechless. Looks like you have indeed obtained this is the first time in my life that I, Chen Tianhe, have met someone as arrogant as you would not be able to possess when a sword sphere spoke again. His voice was even colder, and above as if the surrounding air had dropped several degrees, giving one the feeling that they had fallen into an ice cellar. Zhou Donghuang had been misunderstood as having obtained a treasure left behind by a primal core adept. When Chen Tianhe's gaze returned to Chen Dan, he had heard he suppressed his anger and spoke gently. He did not even think of explaining. However, his tone was slightly hoarse from suppressing his emotions. The person in front of him was not worthy of Zhou Donghuang's explanation. Chen Dan raised her head. Sister Yu, her tear-stained face was covered in frost. Left Protector Wang destroy his cultivation, and then hand him over to me. I'm not sure. I want to cut him into
the
a
valley
thousand
head
pieces.
Should be here by now.
If he cooperates and hands
shook
over
her
the primal
head,
chaos
and then her
adept's
eyes
treasure,
flashed as
I
she
can let
said
him die a
softly,
quick death.
I'll leave for a
if
while
he doesn't
to
find the
cooperate.
valley head, I will cut off every piece of flesh from his body,
keep an eye on this
slice
Zhou
by
Donghuang,
slice, and feed it to the dogs
if you don't
in front
have
of his
to,
eyes. Try not to fight with him.
Chen Danden's
the sword
tone was
sphere
even
in his
colder
hand
than
is too
Chen Tian's.
strange, and once it spread,
As Yu
it was as if the
speaking,
entire arena
she saw
had been
Wang
plunged
Tao
into a
and
harsh
Yu
winter.
nod their heads,
And then she
Danden,
took out a
you are
leaf
so
from her
thoughtful.
pocket and blew on it. If you had not mentioned
As the sound
I would
rang
have
out,
forgotten
Yu
that he had
Meichin's
obtained
flying
the primal
beast mount
chaos
once
adept's
again
treasure.
flew through the air and brought
The disciple of the
away
valley
from
of the
arena,
medicine masters
heading
who had
straight
gone
for
to
the
reports
reports
of
of
Suemo
had mentioned
the
that
valley
Zhou
head of the
Donghuang
valley
had
had
obtained
obtained
the
the opportunity
masters.
left behind by the
On the
primal
way,
core adept.
Yu Meichin
But
met
when
an elder of the valley of the medicine masters riding a flying beast from the direction of
completely
Sumo's
forgotten about
residence.
this matter. Elder Yuan,
Now,
you went to
hearing
find
Chen
the valley
Danden
head.
mention it, he remembered.
Head elder. Since
When
this
Elder
youth had
Yuan
obtained
saw
the primal
Yu Meichin,
chaos
he
adept's
respectfully
treasure,
greeted
he
her
naturally
and
could
bitterly
not kill
smiled.
him directly.
I went to find the valley master,
Even if he wanted to
didn't
kill him,
respond.
it would be after he handed
should
over
be
the
fully
treasure.
immersed in cultivation.
Zhou Donghuang. I thought that you and the
At the
two
same
guardians
time,
should be able
Chen
to solve
Danden
the
left
problem
Chen
that the
Tian's
valley of the
embrace
medicine
and looked at
masters
Zhou
is currently
Donghuang
facing,
with a cold gaze.
so I did not disturb the valley head. She said coldly,
Hearing
I
Elder
remember,
Yuan's
on
words,
the day I left
Yu
the
Meichin
Magnolia
smiled
Guild,
bitterly.
you told me that you hoped I
That
would not
person,
regret what
the
I
two
did.
guardians
and I are
Am
unable
I
to
right?
deal with.
Chen Danden
As soon as
asked.
she finished speaking,
That's
under the
right.
shocked gaze of Elder
Zhou
Yuan,
Donghuang
Yu Meichin
replied
rode on her
indifferently.
flying beast and flew
Now
off
that
into
I
the
think
distance.
about it,
You said that to me
in the
back
blink
then
of an
because
eye,
you had
she
already
landed
obtained
at
the
the
primal
residence
chaos
of
adept's
Suemo,
treasure, the
right?
head of the valley of medicine
Chen
masters.
Danden asked again, and without waiting for Zhou
That
Donghuang
youth,
to speak,
who is he?
she continued,
After
my
Yu
support
Meichin
today
left,
was only
Elder
that tiny
Yuan's
preeminent
eyes were
Hong
filled
family,
with disbelief.
I might regret it.
Even head elder
But now,
and the two
I am
guardians
the daughter
are
of the
unable to
second
deal with
elder
him.
of the
valley of the medicine
the arena.
masters. As
And
Yu
my
Meichin
father,
left, the
there
second
were
elder
initially
of the valley
only
of
a
the
few
medicine
voices
masters
discussing the
Chen
sword
Tianhe
sphere
can
that the
easily
youth
kill
had
you.
mentioned.
As for
This
what
was
you said
because
back
only a
then,
few elders
let me
of the
answer
valley
you
of the
again.
medicine masters had
Chen
heard of
Danden,
the sword
will
sphere.
never regret it. However,
As
after
she
a
spoke,
while,
Chen
the meaning of
Danden's
the sword
lips
curled
curled
into
into
a
a
cold
cold
smile,
the entire
and the
arena,
hatred and
so that
murderous
everyone
intent
in the valley
in her
of the
eyes
medicine
masters
masters
knew what the sword sphere
Is
was.
that so?
The sword
After hearing
sphere,
Chen
a
Danden's
weapon
words,
refined by
Zhou
adepts of the
Donghuang
primal
smiled
core
lightly
stage
and
and
looked
above.
at Chen Tianhe.
If a Khanate
It
stage
looks like you
adept
have a
knows
lot
how
of
to use
confidence
the sword
in this
sphere,
father of yours.
he can use it to easily kill
Of
an
course.
opponent of a higher level.
Chen Danden raised
That
her
is
head
to
like
say,
a proud
this
peacock.
Zhou Donghuang, with the
My
sword
father
sphere,
is not only
could
the
easily
second
kill
elder of
head
the valley
elder
of the
and the
medicine
two guardians,
masters,
but he is also
no
a
wonder the
mid-Khanate
second
stage
elder of
adept.
the middle Khanate stage
Don't
was
think
killed
that
by
just
him
because
with
you
one
defeated
strike.
elderly
It turns
that no
out
one
that
in
the
the
sword
valley of the
sphere in his
medicine
hand
masters
is a
can
treasure
deal
left
with you.
behind by
In
a
the valley
primal
of the
core
medicine
adept.
masters,
Its power is
although there are
amazing.
not many who can deal with you,
There was an
there
uproar
are still
in the
many.
arena. And
At
my
the same
father
time,
is one of them.
the group of elders and
As Chen
disciples of the
Danden
valley
finished
of the
speaking,
medicine masters
Chen
present
Tianhe's
feet
also
had already
realized
begun
that
to
the head
move as
elder
he
of the
walked
valley
towards
of
the
the
medicine
youth in the
masters had
distance.
most likely left to look for
19
the valley
years
lord.
old, early Khanate stage.
Based on the current
If you had
situation,
not obtained the
if
primal
the valley
chaos
head did not
adept's
appear,
treasure,
no
you
one
would
in
be
the valley
considered
of the
an
medicine
unparalleled
masters
genius
would be
among the
a match
martial
for this
arts
youth.
geniuses.
Furthermore,
A primal
if the
chaos
valley head
adept
was
was treasure
careless,
left behind
and the
by a
youth
primal
used the sword
chaos
sphere
adept,
to launch a
and
sneak
you,
attack,
a person from
there
the
was a high
backwater of the
chance that
country
the
of
valley
Yunyang
head would be
have
killed.
achieved so much.
However,
If it had been
now
given
that
to
they
any
all knew
disciple
that
of
the
the
youth
valley
had
of
the
the
sword
medicine
sphere,
masters,
their valley head would
achievements would definitely far
careless.
surpass yours.
At this thought,
For such
they
a
all
treasure
felt
to be given to
reassured.
you is really a waste of
Sword
God's
sphere.
gift. At
If
the
you
same
know what's
time,
good for you,
Chen Danden
hand it
also
over now.
found out how her father,
I can
Chen
persuade
Tianhe,
my daughter
had
to
died,
leave your corpse
and at the same
intact.
time,
Understood
as
why
Chen
head
Tianhe's
elder and the
indifferent
two
words
guardians
fell,
had not
he had
acted
already
against
walked
Zhou
into the
Donghuang.
crowd and stood opposite the
It
youth,
turned out that
glaring
everything was
fiercely
because
at
of
him.
the sword sphere.
Are you
in
done?
Zhou Donghuang's hand.
Zhou Donghuang
Damn
raised
it.
his eyelids somewhat lazily.
What did he
and
do to
glanced at
obtain the
Chen Tianhe?
opportunity left behind by
With
a
a
primal
shake of
core
his right
adept
hand,
and enter the
a
Khanate
small metal
stage in
ball
just
rolled
2
out
short
from
years,
his sleeve,
and he even obtained a
the
treasure
small
like
metal
the sword
ball was
sphere.
in his hand,
And
At
Zhou
this
Donghuang Donghuang played with it casually as he looked at Chen Tianhe mockingly. Of course, it was not because she had betrayed her adoptive mother. Do you know that when your daughter Chen Dandan was 5 years old, she wandered the streets alone and taken away the opportunity and sword sphere that Zhou Donghuang had obtained? It was my mother who brought her home from the snowstorm and gave her food and clothes to wear. If I had obtained everything left behind, do you know that when she was 9 years old, her chronic illness acted up? It was also my mother who braved the wind and rain to climb cliffs, and I might even be able to go even higher and further than to gather herbs to treat her illness and save her life. Chen Dandan was filled with regret. Also, seeing that Zhou Donghuang was about to continue speaking, Chen Tianhe had already interrupted him coldly. He knows that head elder has gone to find the valley head, most likely because she knew that she was my daughter. When the valley head arrives, I'll see how he leaves. Don't
Now,
make your mother
on
sound
one
so
hand,
noble,
Chen
and
Dandan
don't
felt
use your
that the
mother's
youth
little
was stupid and
contribution
did
to
not know
slander
how to
Dandan
leave the
as an
valley
ingrate.
before the valley had arrived.
Chen Tianha said coldly.
She hoped that the youth
Hearing
would not
Chen
leave and
Tianha's
wait
words,
for the valley
Zhou
head to deal with
Donghuang
him.
was stunned for a moment.
The valley
then
head
quickly
is a
regained his
stage
composure
adept,
and could not
even
help
if this
but
Zhou
laugh.
Donghuang has the sword
In the
spear
past,
and the
I've
valley
only
head is
heard of the
prepared.
saying,
He is
like
still
father
no
like
match for
daughter.
the valley head.
Today,
even
Zhou
though Chen
Donghuang
Dandan had yet to
learned
meet the valley head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters,
Chen Dandan's
it did not
ingrate
affect
was
her
all
confidence
inherited
in the
from
Valley
you.
of the Medicine Masters,
Zhou
who had a
Donghuang's
high and
eyes
lofty
flashed
status.
coldly.
Zhou
Cut the crap.
Donghuang, the valley
Chen
head can
Tianha
still
laughed
deal with
coldly.
you.
The coldness
Do not
in
have
his
the
eyes
ability
rising.
to make me, Chen Dandan,
Since you have no intention of
surrendering
surrendering
and
and
handing over the opportunity left behind by the primal core adept. Stared coldly at Zhou Donghuang. I will personally capture you and hand you over to my daughter to deal with my father. Today,
almost as soon as Chen
at the
Tianha
hands of the
finished
valley
speaking,
head, the chi all over
in
his
the future,
body exploded.
I will
by
definitely
more than
get
3
my
feet,
father's senior
and with a
brothers
jolt
to
of his
kill
body,
that
it was as if he had transformed into a cannonball that
everyone
emitted a
related
blue glow,
to her.
blasting towards
Only
Zhou
then can
Donghuang.
the hatred in my heart be
The
appeased.
momentum was fierce, as
Of
if
course,
thousands of
Chen
men and
Dandan
horses
did not
were
dare
charging
to
say
forward.
these words aloud.
Humph.
She only dared
However,
to swear in
faced
her
with
heart,
the fierce
because she
momentum
was
of
also
Chen Tianha,
worried that
who
Zhou
had crossed
Donghuang
half
would
the
kill her
distance
in
in
a
a
blink of an eye. Zhou Donghuang
After all,
only snorted
no one
coldly.
present
could deal with Zhou Donghuang.
In the next
moment, on the right
this
hand
Zhou
that held the
Donghuang,
small metal ball,
he still hasn't
a foot
left.
of chi raged.
Is he crazy?
In an instant, the small
If I were
metal
him,
ball,
knowing
or
that
more
the valley
accurately,
head is coming,
the sword sphere,
would have run as
with
far
the
as I
injection
could.
of the foot of chi,
He
transformed
probably
into a
knows that he
small
can't
metal
run,
sword that
so
was
he wants
surrounded
to
by
stay
a
in
cold
the
light
negotiate
that could
with
be
the
seen
valley
with the
head.
naked eye. I also think that he should be waiting for the valley
With a
head to come
casual
and
wave of
negotiate.
Zhou Donghuang's
Otherwise,
right hand,
even if he
the
doesn't
small
leave,
metal sword
there is no
sliced
need
through
for
the
him
air,
to just
like a
stand there
meteor
like a
that
fool.
flashed
across the night sky.
He could totally
whistling
use the sword
towards
Chen
sphere in
Tianha.
his hand to kill as many
End of
people
this
as he
chapter.
can before the valley head arrives.
Chapter
Lower your
149.
voice. If he hears your warning and attacks
Under the
us,
watchful
you will
eyes of the
regret
crowd,
it. The middle-aged
just
man
as
who
many
had
of
been
the
charging
disciples
at the
of the
youth
Valley
suddenly
of the
fell
Medicine
head first
Masters
to the
were
ground,
whispering.
his body scraping the
valley
ground for
head
some
is
distance
here.
before coming to a stop.
In
In the air outside the training
The 3-foot
grounds,
green
an
glow
elder
that
of the
had
Valley
burst
of the
forth from
Medicine
his
Masters,
body was also
who was standing
extinguished,
on the back
like
of
a
a flame
flame
that had been
beast,
extinguished,
looked
looked at the middle-aged man on
The
the
scene
back
that
of
had
a
happened
huge
to the
flying
disciples
beast
of the
flying
Valley of
towards
the
them
Medicine
from afar.
Masters
Who had stood up for Chen
His
Dandan
eyes
was
lit up
repeated,
as he
but
shouted
this
with
time,
all his might.
The shock was even greater,
His voice
causing
was so
the crowd
loud
of
that it
disciples
even
of the
drowned
Valley
out
of
the
the
whispers
Medicine
in the
Masters
training
to stare in
grounds.
shock and silence. Pa! It was only when the
Chapter
small metal
152.
sword whistled back from afar,
Whoosh.
turning back into a sword
The
spear
huge
and
flying
returning to
demonic
Zhou
beast was
Donghuang's
like a
hand
bolt
that the
of
crowd of
lightning.
disciples of the Valley of
In
the
the blink of
Medicine
an eye,
Masters came
it
to their
flew
senses
from the
and
outside
inhaled
of the
training
training
field to the sky above
Second
the training
elder
field.
is dead.
At the
Under
same
the
time,
watchful eyes
it
of the
slowed
crowd
down
of
its
disciples
speed and
of the
swooped
Valley
down.
of the
Medicine Masters.
This
The
flying
middle-aged
beast was
man
no
who had
stranger to the
mysteriously
people of the
fallen
Valley of the
headfirst to the
Medicine
ground lay
Masters.
motionless on the ground.
It was the
Between
Mount
his
of
head
Eyebrows.
elder of the
There was
Valley
a
of the
hideous
Medicine
bloody hole
Masters,
from
which fresh blood flowed
Now,
like water.
on the back of this flying beast,
Evidently,
besides
this was
the
a
head
fatal
elder
wound
of the
Valley of the Medicine Masters.
Just now,
there was
I think
another
I heard
person
the sound of
standing
a
in
sword
front of the
whistling
head
for a
elder of
brief
the
moment.
Valley of the Medicine Masters.
I heard it too.
The white-haired,
Didn't
ruddy
you all
woman,
notice
who was the
that
head
small
elder
metal
of the Valley
sphere
of
in
the
Zhou
Medicine
Donghuang's
Masters,
hand suddenly turned into a small
dagger
dagger-like
clustered
sword
around
that
the
he threw at
middle-aged
second
man.
elder?
The
In my
middle-aged
opinion,
man was dressed
second
in a
elder was
scholarly
killed
gray
by
robe.
that small metal sword.
He had sword-like eyebrows
If that's
and
really the
starry
case,
eyes. Isn't that small metal
his
sword
complexion
too
was
fast?
like
Jade, and he exuded
actually
the
didn't
unique
see
charm of a
anything.
mature man. Following a
Seeing
wave of
him,
whispers,
many of the
one
female
gaze
elders
after
and
another
disciples
shifted
of the
from
Valley
the
of
corpse
the
of the
Medicine
Medicine
Masters'
eyes lit
Masters'
up.
second elder,
Chen
Greetings
Tianha,
to the
Valley
youth.
Master. The youth was
No one
dressed
knew
in
who was
clothes
the
whiter
first
than
to call
snow,
out loudly.
his left hand behind his
Following
back,
this
and his
announcement,
right hand
the
toying
entire
with a
training
small metal
grounds
sphere.
erupted into an uproar.
Just now, many
All
people
the
had
elders
noticed
and
the small
disciples of
metal
the
sphere
Valley
in
of
the
the
Medicine
Medicine
Masters
but
bowed
they
to
had
the
never
middle-aged
imagined
man
that
on
this
the back
small
of the
metal
flying
sphere
beast
could turn into a sword and
Greetings,
kill the Valley of the
Valley
Medicine
Master,
Masters.
second elder in one
Greetings,
blow. Valley Master.
A
A
series
series of
of
respectful
respectful
voices
voices
rang out in the
martial
martial
arts
arts Valley
arena,
of the Medicine
and as they
Masters
spread out,
Wang Mingfeng
they reverberated
saw
throughout
Zhou
the entire
Donghuang kill
valley
the Valley
valley of the medicine second elder located, rising and falling with great steps back, as if deeply afraid that others would think the head of the valley of the medicine masters is here. Today, even if you have the sword sphere left behind by that primal core adept, had displayed extraordinary power, you will definitely had even killed the second elder of the valley of the medicine eyes lit up when she saw the huge flying demonic beast. This second elder of the valley of the medicine masters was not the strongest person in the valley of the young man and said in a cold voice, Not to mention
However,
the fact that the Valley of the Medicine Masters had several other mid-Khanate stage adepts. The Valley head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters was a late Khanate stage adept and was widely recognized as the strongest in the surrounding regions. Seeing that the Valley head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters had arrived, Father Chen Dandan finally dared to say what she had not dared to say Medicine Master's disciples, and the Valley Elder who had lost an arm all fell upon the sword up into a sinister smile that Chen Dandan recovered from her shock. The killing intent in her eyes had reached its peak. When she realized that her father, the outcome of the young man before him today was either to die out of wail or be captured by the Valley of the Medicine Masters and killed after the primal core adept's treasure was taken from despair. The Valley of the Medicine Masters had no feelings for her biological father who had suddenly appeared. However, if he had been a beggar, Chen Dandan would never have acknowledged him. Originally, it was precisely because he was the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters and had a high status in the surrounding regions of the 16 countries of the East Valley that Chen Dandan had so readily acknowledged him as her father and behaved obediently out of humiliation. He even laughed. Now, Chen Dandan's grief and anguish was not because of Chen Tian's death, I haven't attacked but because she had suddenly lost such a powerful backer. Smiled and asked, with Chen Tian's death, even if the Valley of the Medicine Masters allowed Chen Dandan it would have been better if the young man hadn't mentioned this. Her status in the Valley of the Medicine Masters would she was a little puzzled. Chen Dandan could not accept the youth had killed her father. The second elder of the Valley of the Medicine was really dead. Chen Dandan suddenly raised her head and glared fiercely and almost everyone in the Valley of the Medicine Masters had gathered. She gritted her teeth and said hatefully, Zhou Donghuang, not only did he not attack the others, the Valley of the Medicine Masters will not let you off. It would have been better if it was almost as if she was setting off. But now that he thought about it, it didn't make sense. She asked herself if she was a young man the elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, she would have already started a massacre and escaped instead of staying where she was, pulled out a small bamboo tube from his pocket with his right hand. Because, as Chen Dandan frowned, a signal flare shot into the air and turned up in a mocking smile. This signal flare could only be used by the upper echelons of the Valley of the Medicine Masters when you are regretting all that you have done in the past, and no one had only one. Just this kind of signal flare could only be used when one's life was in danger. Looked at the approaching flying beast. Although this elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters you should see the Valley in danger at the moment, seeing that the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters had died. The smile he could only use this method to inform the other Khanate stage adepts of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Hearing Zhou Donghuang's words and seeing the radiant smile on his signal flare, Chen Dandan's face turned pale. This youth will not be able to escape even if he has wings. This Zhou Donghuang, once the signal flare is released, some sort of relation Valley head hears or sees it, he will still rush over. Could it be that the Valley head brought him into the Valley of the Medicine Masters? At the same time that the group of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters were alarmed by the signal flare. All over the Valley of the Medicine Masters, the martial arts talent that heard the signal flare or seen the fire of this world, were alarmed. A 19-year-old Khanate stage was already worthy of the Valley head personally welcoming him into the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Whoosh! Not far from Chen Dandan, the two guardians of the Valley of the Medicine Masters heard the conversation from the four observation towers around the valley where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located, for huge their current thoughts were similar heading to straight for the place where the signal flare had exploded. They were still dissatisfied with the training ground. Zhou Donghuang had killed the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, and judging from their huge size and speed, he was a mid-Khanate stage adept of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. On the backs of these four flying demons, there were only 5 middle-aged stage adepts in the entire Valley of the Medicine Masters. Now all 4 of them had exceptionally sharp eyes, with Chen staring fixedly at the training grounds in the middle of the valley where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was into the valley by the Valley head. At the same time, we must punish him severely according to the rules of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Figures were rushing out, some riding demons, the left guardian quickly. Wang Tao said in a low voice, without exception, of all Khanate stage adepts of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. The skinny old man, the right guardian, signal flare just now had been released by the upper echelons of the Valley of the Medicine Masters of the Khanate stage and above, as the huge flying beast for anyone below the Khanate stage. 2 figures leapt down, one in front and one behind. The people of the Valley of the Medicine Masters who were rushing to the training grounds were all Khanate stage adepts of the Valley of the Medicine Valley of the Medicine Masters in the training grounds, and the Valley head. Chen Dandan stared hatefully at the youth. Her cold gaze as sharp as a sword, the elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, into 1,000 who had formed a circle, all bowed respectfully to Suemo. If you destroy me today, don't even think of living. Even the 2 guardians of the Valley of the Medicine Masters said coldly, Wang Tao, is that so? Although they were Sumo's elders, in public, their seniority was not higher than their status, expression non-committal. And at this moment, They also
when the
bowed
crowd of
respectfully
disciples
to
of the
Sumo.
Valley of the Medicine Masters
Under
saw
normal
this,
circumstances,
they were puzzled.
At this moment,
This
Sumo
youth,
would
not
definitely
only is he
return
not
the greeting
running
to
now,
Wang Tao
but he
and
also
Yue.
looks so confident.
But now,
could it be that he has something up
stood
his
there,
sleeves that he is
not
not
afraid of the Khanate stage adepts of the Valley of the Medicine
His gaze
Masters?
seemed to be completely attracted
In my
by
opinion,
the youth in white
he doesn't
standing
know the
not
strength
far
of the
away.
Valley of the Medicine Masters.
In this period of time,
does he
because
really
of the
think that
amazing
just because he
Khanate
used
elixir,
that hidden weapon
Sumo's
to kill
level of
second
practice
elder,
had
he is
advanced
invincible
rapidly,
in the Valley
and he
of
was
the
getting
Medicine
closer and
Masters?
closer to the ultimate
Naive.
Khanate stage.
Just now,
Therefore,
if not
under
for
normal
his sneak attack and
circumstances,
second
he
elder's
had no
carelessness
intention
and
of
lack
stopping
of
his
defense,
practice.
he might not have succeeded.
Because of this, even when the
Naturally,
elders of the Valley of the Medicine
he is only an
Masters
early
came looking for
Khanate
him,
stage adept.
he did not stop his practice
And
when he
second
saw
elder
that they
is a
were
late
not in a
Khanate
hurry to
stage
break in.
adept. Only
Although
when
many
his
of
uncle,
the disciples
the
of
head
the Valley
elder
of the Medicine Masters were puzzled by the youth's
Yue
apparent
Qin,
confidence,
came and broke
most of
in
them
did he
felt
stop
that the
his
youth
practice.
did not know his own limits.
After learning of what had happened in the
Who
training
released the
ground,
signal
he
flare?
immediately guessed that the person
Accompanied
who had
by
done it
a
must have been
swift
his
sound
master,
that pierced through
the
the
youth
air.
in white,
An old
the
but
sword
resonant
sphere,
voice
both
came
were
from
the
behind a
hallmarks of
huge
his
gray
master.
eagle. He did
It was
not
an
even
old
have
man
time to
dressed in
explain
gray.
to Yue Qin before
It's
he
the
flew onto the
thunder-feathered
back of
eagle.
Yue Qin's flying beast
Elder
mount
Mo
and came
is
to
here.
the training grounds. Although Elder Mo
Valley
is
head.
also an early Khanate stage
Shindandan
adept,
took
he
2
is
or
close
3
to the middle
steps forward
Khanate
and knelt
stage,
in front of
and his
Sumo,
power is much
weeping
stronger than
bitterly.
Elder Li's.
My father,
Many of the
Chen
disciples
Tianhe,
of the
was
Valley
the
of
second
the
elder
Medicine
of the
Masters
Valley of the
immediately
Medicine
recognized
Masters,
the gray
and had
eagle
made
and the
countless
old man on its
contributions
back
to
who
the
had
Valley
arrived
of
at
the
the
Medicine
arena
Masters.
first. But
Swoosh.
today, he was killed by someone who
Swoosh.
trespassed into the Valley of the
Swoosh.
Medicine Masters. After the thunder-feathered
Please,
eagle,
Valley
another
head,
3
give
huge
justice
flying
to my
beasts
father.
arrived, and on each
Although
of their backs stood a
Chen Dandan was
person.
not confident,
The
had
elders
no
on
other
duty
choice.
at the observation tower
Just
are
as the
all
youth
here.
had said,
The head of
now,
the Valley of
the
the
4
Medicine
elders
Masters
of the Valley
before
of the
her was
Medicine
the last
Masters
straw
who had
that she
arrived
could
first
clutch with the
had.
ones on duty at the 4
However,
observation
Sumo
posts in the
completely
valley where the
ignored
Valley of the
Chen
Medicine
Dandan.
Masters was located.
He took 2 steps forward.
They were the first
past
to
Chen
discover
Dandan,
the signal
and
flare
under the
and
shocked
had
and
rushed over
incredulous
immediately.
gazes of the crowd from the
Valley
All
of the
4 of
Medicine
them were
Masters.
early
He
Khanate
knelt
stage
before the
adepts,
youth,
and none of them were weaker
Sumo
than Elderly,
pays his
whose
respects
arm
to
had been
master,
crippled by the youth.
Second, in the blink of an eye, the
Second
loud,
elder,
respectful voice
However,
once again spread
before
throughout
Elderly
the
had
entire
time to
training
speak,
grounds.
the 4
and even
elders
throughout
of
the
the
Valley
vast
of the
valley
Medicine
where the
Masters
Valley of the
discovered
Medicine
Chen Tianhe's
Masters was
body at the
located.
same time, and their
The
expressions
echoes caused
changed
everyone in the
instantly.
martial arts practice
Chen
field to be
Tianhe was
stunned.
the second elder of the Valley of the
entire
Medicine
martial arts
Masters,
practice
a
field
middle
immediately
Khanate
fell
stage
into a
adept.
deathly silence.
In terms of power,
This was
even
especially
if the 4
so
of them
for the
attacked
elders
together,
of the Valley
they
of
would
the
still be
Medicine
no
Masters,
match for Chen
as
Tianhe,
well as the head elder of the Valley
Bang.
of the Medicine Masters,
Bang.
Yue Qin, and
Bang.
even the Valley of the Medicine Masters
Bang.
left Sentinel Wang Tao
After
and
the
right
4
Sentinel
elders
Yue.
on duty at the observation
They all
posts
stared in
discovered
disbelief
Chen
at
Tianhe's
the
death.
figure kneeling on
They
the
did not
ground with his back
hesitate
to
and
them.
each released the only signal
If not
flare
for the
they
fact
had
that
on
they
them.
were very familiar with the
Instantly,
Valley head,
the
they
entire
might even
Valley
have
of the
suspected
Medicine
that this was a
Masters was
fake
alarmed.
Valley head.
The signal
Is that
flare of the
really
5
the
Valley
Valley
stage
head?
adepts and above
Valley
in the Valley
head,
of the Medicine
calling that
Masters
youth
sounded
master?
one after another.
Are you
Exploding
sure
in
you're
the
not
air
joking?
above the valley where the Valley
He's
of
really
the
the
Medicine
Valley
Masters
head.
was located. The high and mighty
Furthermore,
Valley head of the
they
Valley
all
of the
sounded
Medicine
in the air
Masters
above
is
the
calling a
arena.
youth master. My goodness, I'm not dreaming.
What's
going on? Now, the
5
rest of the
Khanate
people of the
stage
Valley
adepts
of the Medicine Masters and the training grounds were also completely dumbfounded. This signal flare
They could
seems
not
to
believe
only be
what they were
released when
seeing
their
and
lives
hearing
are in
was
danger,
real.
right? What a joke. Let's go. The Valley
Let's
head
go
of the
take a
Valley
look.
of the Medicine Masters,
Such a
Su
big
Mo,
commotion,
was the
even
most
the head
powerful
elder,
person
the
in the
2
surrounding
guardians,
regions
and
and
the
the 16
16
countries
must have
of
been
the East
alarmed.
Valley.
5
And that
signal
youth
flare
was only
exploded
from a
in the
small
air
place
one
in the
after
country
another,
of Yunnan, and at the same time as the
How could
brilliant
he be the
fireworks
master of the
blossomed,
Valley of the
the
Medicine
entire Valley of
Masters,
the Medicine
Sumo.
Masters became lively.
No.
At this moment,
Impossible.
even the adepts below the
Chen
Khanate
Dandan
stage
had just
in the
been
Valley
scared
of the Medicine
silly by
Masters,
Sumo's words,
driven by their
and
curiosity,
now that she had recovered,
all headed in
her
the
face
direction
was
of
full
the
of
arena.
disbelief.
Of course,
How is this
they were
possible?
just there to join in the fun.
How is this possible?
What a joke. Chen Dandan stood up, her
If
body
even 5
shaking
Khanate
violently
stage
as she
adepts
pointed
of
a
the Valley
finger
of the
at
Medicine
Sumo's
Masters
back. Had to send out a signal
You're
flare
not
for
the
help.
Valley head.
How could they help solve
solve such a problem. You're definitely not the valley head. End of this chapter. Chen Dandan, how dare you? Seeing Chen Dandan like this, Yu Meiqin's expression changed, and she scolded her coldly. The training grounds. Although she also could not understand the establishment of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, the training grounds had never been as crowded as it was today. The Medicine Masters was not someone All the people of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, whether they were elders or disciples, were all gathered there. Yu Meiqin's scolding caused there were even a few elders and disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters riding on flying beasts. Her whole body slumped to the ground, circling around the outer perimeter of the arena, and her face was as white as a sheet. It was not that they did not want to go in. Chindandan, everyone has to make complicated choices. It was because there were a few great consummation flying demons on the training grounds. I only hope that you will not regret it in the future. Were of a lower level of practice, that day when she had left the Magnolia Guild, of those the youth's words still rang in her ears. Why don't we go down and go up to the training grounds ourselves? She had been dismissive of the youth's words. A disciple of the Valley of the Medicine Masters suggested, especially after she had entered the Valley of the Medicine Masters and recognized the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Can't you see there are so many people on the training grounds? She had felt that she and that youth were no longer I'm afraid you won't even be able to squeeze in. That youth was destined to be trampled underfoot. Valley disciple on the other flying beast and now, shook his head. The youth that she had always looked down on was standing there. Let's just watch as proud as a mountain from here. At least we can see what's going on inside. The Valley of the Medicine Masters. If we go down to the training grounds, who she had always thought I'm afraid we'll only be able to was kneeling in front of the youth, respectfully calling him master. I heard he's a 19-year-old young man. That one? I can't see his face clearly, but since they say he's 19, he must really be kneeling in front of the young man in front of the entire valley. I heard he was originally from a small place in the country of his authority as but because he obtained a treasure left behind by a primal core adept, he entered the early after tasting the sweetness of the Khanate elixir, he even used a young man before him weapon to kill the second. He no longer wanted to take it because by taking a 19-year-old Khanate young man had formulated, what a pity, he had a high chance of attaining the primal core stage and becoming a primal core adept. The gathered people of the Valley of the Medicine Masters all felt that the young man in white who had killed their second elder would be extended by nearly 200 years. The training grounds would definitely die in the face of that nearly 200 years of life. The young man in white stood there, whatever face, his left hand was completely thrown to the right hand playing with a small metal ball. Furthermore, around him, what if his there was already a group of old and middle-aged men, as long as he still had his Valley of the Medicine Masters, as he was the strongest in the Valley stage, who in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, including his elders, although the group dared to disrespect him as Valley, no one made a move, quietly waiting for something. Pleasing the young man before him was the most important by the elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Everything else was not important. Besides the young man, there was also a young girl. Under the watchful eyes of the girl was lying beside a corpse, glanced at glaring at the young man with bloodthirsty hatred. Su Mo stood up. Whoosh! Zhou Donghuang walked out unhurriedly. The sound of something tearing through the air came from high up in the sky, attracting the attention of many people. Zhou Donghuang looked down at the young girl sitting paralyzed on the ground. The great elder is here, her face as white as a sheet, and accompanied by a burst of exclamations. A huge blue-feathered eagle glided over the martial arts field at a low altitude, did not seem and then a light figure jumped down from the eagle's sitting there paralyzed. The 3 feet of green light wreaked havoc as the newcomer landed steadily on the ground. Zhou Donghuang right in the middle of the circle of elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Originally dull eyes finally revealed himself in full view. She looked at Zhou Donghuang and laughed. It was a middle-aged woman dressed in a light gray robe. It was only because you were lucky enough to obtain the opportunity. She looked like a middle-aged primal core adept that you are where you are today. With white hair and a youthful face, if not for that, nothing would have been destined to be stepped on by me, great elder, for the rest of your life. Great elder. As she said, as soon as the white-haired woman's eyes shone, the elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, who had formed a circle around her, bowed to her respectfully. Su Mo, who had just stood up, this woman was the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine in front of his master, and he immediately flew into a rage. Was now nearly 90 years old. If you dare to be rude to my master seniority, I will even have the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Su Mo laughed, had to address her as sarcasm. Great head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, seeing Yu Mei Qin acknowledging a kid who was still wet behind the ears forward and knelt on the ground, what a joke, weeping bitterly. My father has made countless contributions to the Valley of the Medicine Masters, and now he has been killed by someone who trespassed into the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Following that, Zhou and the Valley of the Medicine Masters must avenge my father. Chindandan, as long as you kneel down and step forward and bow to Chindandan and say that you were wrong and full of energy. I won't kill who it is. How about the Valley of the Medicine Masters will not let him off for killing the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Couldn't help but be taken aback by the young man's words. As soon as she finished speaking, Yu Mei Qin's looked at the young man suspiciously and asked, and her originally cloudy eyes suddenly shone. You only have 3 breaths of time to consider. Of course, there was also a hint of fear in the depths of her eyes. Almost as soon as the youth finished speaking, the person who had been killed lifted her limp body and was the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. She lowered her head and said hoarsely, "Big brother Donghuang, although he was not as strong as she was, I regret he was not far off. I should not have betrayed on the way here. Should not have betrayed the elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters who had come to look for her, and she had already completely understood the ins and outs of the matter. If she had not betrayed her was only 16 years old." and he had come from a small place even if she could not take the opportunity left behind. It was suspected that he had obtained an opportunity left behind would not have been stingy, given his character, and that was how he had reached the early. If she had stayed by Zhou Donghuang's side, that small metal achievements would not have been less than if she had acknowledged the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Gaze fell on the small metal ball that the youth was playing with in his right hand. However, could it now that she had been crippled by Zhou Donghuang, as someone who was even more senior than Valley Lord Su Mo in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, you may after all, as the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, said she regretted was no less knowledgeable than even Valley Lord Su Mo. With her meridians crippled, she was really destined to be an ordinary person in the entire Valley of the Medicine Masters. Moreover, I'm afraid only the Valley Lord alone can defeat him. Even if he did not to the records of a he would definitely not that she had read in an ancient book, you may know when to yield and when to stand sense of fear. Seeing this was not the hidden weapon that the elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters had mentioned at all, but a sword sphere that only killing you with my own hands would really dirty my hands. As he said of an early Khanate stage adept, looked at a sword sphere could easily kill a middle Khanate stage adept, I would not kill her, and even a late Khanate stage adept would be hard-pressed to survive if he was not prepared. You understand what I mean, little fellow. As he said this, Zhou Donghuang looked deeply at Su Mo and asked, to be able to obtain an opportunity left behind by a primal core adept is your good fortune. As Su Mo responded, you have trespassed into the Valley of the Medicine Masters and killed our second elder, Zhou Donghuang, you are shameless. Isn't that a little too much? When Chen Dandan heard the youth's words, Zhou Donghuang smiled indifferently, and then his gaze raised her head and glared at the youth with red eyes. I have come here today only for Chen Dandan. You go back on your word. Some people want to stand up for her and cruelly betray a woman who has treated you like her own daughter for almost 10 years. What a joke. What difference is there between such behavior and that of a beast? The corner of Zhou Donghuang's mouth turned up in a mocking smile. Chen Dandan, his eyes flashing coldly. She has already successfully sent her father towards on his way. People. Of course I will not go back on my word. At your age, it's best not to meddle in other people's especially ungrateful lest you follow in her father's footsteps. Why should I keep my word? As he said killing this, Zhou Donghuang's eyes in his heart was only a small part of the reason. The bigger reason was that Zhou Donghuang wanted to stand up for his mother, immediately darkened. Being threatened by a youth who was younger than her great-grandson made her extremely embarrassed, and as she opened her mouth, before she could finish her sentence, the sword sphere she could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Zhou Donghuang. At the same time, how dare you threaten the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters? Are you tired of living? In the blink of an eye, he was just 2 meters away from before Chen Dandan, and with the point of his finger, Dandan had not dared to provoke the youth too much, deeply afraid that he would kill her. Now that Yu Mei-chin was here, just as Su Mo's life was about to extend to 7 feet, the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, bang. Zhou Donghuang in that moment of imminent smiled and accompanied by a loud explosion. Not just the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Today, not only did the green Valley Lord extended to 7 feet from his fingertips dissipate, he would have to also retreated several steps in a timely manner. How dare you? How dare you? As he retreated a few steps, almost as soon as Zhou opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Mei-chin, the head his elder face of the was as white as a sheet, and it was obvious that he had suffered a serious injury. Surrounding Zhou Donghuang were aghast, and began to shout angrily. Zhou Donghuang's expression also changed. The Valley Lord of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, he raised his head was the most respected person in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. The sword sphere in his right hand had transformed into a sword, and it shone with a cold light that was visible no different from that of an emperor, high above and inviolable. Seeing that Su Mo had attacked the youth before them had actually dared to insult the Valley Lord of the Valley of the Medicine Masters that she was not dead. How could they tolerate this? She then followed Zhou Donghuang's gaze arrogance and looked into the sky above her. What an insolent youth. There was an old man in just a black robe standing and the other elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters were enraged face. 2 elderly voices the old man's face was covered in a huge flying beast, and he looked even older than the Valley of the Medicine Masters, stirring up gusts of wind. Yue. Whoosh! But he stood in the air, whoosh, his black robe fluttering in the wind. At the same time, 2 figures jumped down from the back of the flying demonic beasts. Primal. 2 dazzling 3 feet long streaks of azure light whistled out of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, cried out supporting the 2 of them to land steadily. Everyone knew that only when a martial adept landed not far from Yu Mei-chin could he rely on his inner yuan to ignore gravity and fly in the air. Furthermore, if one looked closely, one could see that there was a faint golden light surrounding the old Valley of the Medicine Masters, supporting him as their angry gazes from the youth and bowed respectfully to the newcomers. Seeing the faint golden light surrounding the old senior brothers, Zhou Donghuang's eyes at this moment,
Even Yu Mei-Qin,
with his eyesight,
the head elder
he could
of the
naturally
tell
tell at a glance that the old man in the black robe before him was a golden
essence.
The two people
who
had just arrived were two
golden
silver-haired old men.
was another name for adepts
who had entered the ultimate primal core
stage.
The fat man was the same as Yu Mei-Qin.
The primal
he
core
also
stage,
had white hair
like the
and a
Khanate
youthful
stage,
complexion, was divided into 4
his
levels.
chubby face
They
was
were the
rosy
early
and
primal
glowing.
core stage, the middle
As for the
primal
thin
core
one,
stage,
his
the
face
late
was
primal
old,
core stage,
and one could tell
and
at
the
a glance
ultimate
that he
primal
was
core
close
stage.
to 100
years old. When a Khanate adept entered the
two of them
core
were
stage,
only a few
the
years
first
apart
step
in
was to
age,
condense
both
the
in their
false core,
90s,
and were the two
After
oldest
successfully
people in the valley
condensing
of
the
the
false
medicine
core,
masters. One would be considered to
in
have
terms
entered
of
the early
seniority,
primal core
they
stage.
were both
uncles to the Valley Lord, Su-Mo. After the false core,
The fat
the
old
next
man
step
was the
to
left
condense
guardian,
the true
Wang
core,
Tao.
and once successfully
The thin
condensed
old
the
man
true
was
core
the right
stage,
guardian,
one would be
Yue.
considered to have entered the
Both
middle
of them
primal
were
core
mid-Khanate
stage adepts.
After
Infinitely
the true
close to the
core
late
was the
Khanate
silver
stage,
core,
and could enter the
corresponding
late
to the
Khanate
late
stage
primal
at
core
any
stage.
time, or never in their lives.
Adepts
who had entered this stage
in the
of
valley
practice
of the
were
medicine
also called
masters,
silver
their strength
essence
was
adepts.
second only to the Valley Lord.
After the silver
Su-Mo,
essence was the
and
golden
they were even
essence.
stronger than head elder Yu
For a
Mei-Qin.
primal core adept to fly
Even
in
the
the
left
air,
and right
he needed
guardians
to
are
rely
here.
on his inner Yuan.
Head elder, left
The inner
and
Yuan
right
of an
guardians
early
are
primal
here.
core
Now,
adept came from
of
the
all the
false core and
mid-Khanate
was
stage
pale
adepts
white.
in the valley
The inner
of the
Yuan
medicine
of a
masters,
mid-primal core
only the
adept
valley
came from the
lord
true
and
core
third
and was
elder
milky
are not
white.
here, right?
The inner Yuan of a late
Third
primal
elder
core
has been
adept
away
came
from the
recently,
silver essence
and will
and
definitely
silver.
not be able
The
to
inner
make
Yuan
it.
of an ultimate primal
Only
core
the Valley
adept
Lord
came from
is
the
the golden
left.
essence and was gold.
Head elder and the two guardians
Because of
are
this,
here.
Zhou
Even if the
Donghuang
Valley
could
Lord
tell
is
that
not
the old
here,
man in the
that
black
youth is
robe
destined
before
to
him
be
was a
captured.
golden essence adept. Outside, the
Of
crowd of
course,
disciples
when
of
Buddhist
the Valley of
adepts
the medicine
cultivated
masters,
Buddhist essences,
without exception,
even if they had
all
just
felt
entered
that
the
the
early
youth was
primal
finished.
core stage,
their inner Yuan would still be gold. However, within that gold inner Yuan, there was a Buddhist Sanskrit imprint, and it was completely different from the gold inner Yuan surrounding the old man in the black robe before him. The gold inner Yuan surrounding the old man in the black robe before him was the inner Yuan of a true golden essence adept. Thank you, Senior, for saving my life. After a moment of shock, Chen Dandan realized that it was the old man in the black robe who had saved her. She hurriedly turned to the old man and knelt down to thank him, her eyes filled with the joy of surviving a calamity. Of course, on her face, there was still some apprehension. This was because she did not recognize the old man in the black robe before her, and she was not sure if he would still save her after saving her just now. Sir. After Su-Mo had caught his breath, he gave a 90-degree bow to the old man in the black robe. His voice was almost trembling as he asked respectfully, "May I know why you have come to the Valley of the Medicine Masters?" Primal Core Adepts were above Khanate Adepts. Even if it was just an early Primal Core Adept, if he attacked with all his might, his inner Yuan would be able to envelop an area of 100 meters around him, leaving nothing behind. When a mid-Primal Core Adept used his full strength, his inner Yuan could cover an area of 300 meters in radius, and one blow could destroy a small village. When a late Primal Core Adept used his full strength, his inner Yuan could cover an area of 1,000 meters in radius, and one blow could destroy a large village. When an ultimate Primal Core Adept used his full strength, his inner Yuan could cover an area of 3,000 meters in radius, and one blow could destroy a small village. And the old man in the gray robe before him was surrounded by the golden inner Yuan unique to ultimate Primal Core Adepts. He was obviously an ultimate Primal Core Adept, and if he used his full strength, he could easily destroy everything in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Chapter 154. The black-robed old man stood in the air like a god, looking down on the heavens and the earth, looking down on all life. Faced with the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Su-Mo's eyes, which had been cloudy, suddenly shone brightly, like two bright stars, lighting up the entire night sky. His eyes narrowed slightly as he glanced at the youth standing not far from Su-Mo. The youth was dressed in robes whiter than snow, and now he was looking at him with a slight frown. A few days ago, when I was traveling here, I saw this young man riding a great consummation demon, the golden-crowned eagle, across the sky. At that time, I was very curious. In this tiny place where there was not even a single Primal Core Adept, how could there be someone at such a young age who could subdue a great consummation demon, and a flying demon at that? That was my first encounter with him. The old man said lightly. Zhou Donghuang had originally thought that the old man had come for Chen Dandan, but he had not expected that he had come for him, and his frown relaxed slightly. Hearing the old man's words, Chen Dandan's face turned pale. This godlike primal core adept had actually come for Zhou Donghuang? Had he taken a fancy to Zhou Donghuang's achievements at his age, and wanted to take him as a disciple? Senior. Chen Dandan looked at the old man anxiously. This Zhou Donghuang, it is only because he obtained a miraculous encounter left behind by a primal core adept that he could achieve so much at his age. I believe that if I had obtained the miraculous encounter left behind by that primal core adept, my achievements now would definitely be no less than his. He is only a person from a remote village in the kingdom of Yunyang, one of the 16 countries of the East Valley under the Valley of the Medicine Masters, and his bloodline is lowly. As for me, I am the daughter of the second elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, a mid-Khanate stage adept. My father, Chen Tianhe, was only 50 years old, but he had already attained the mid-Khanate stage, and is one of the few martial prodigies that the Valley of the Medicine Masters has produced in recent years. I have inherited my father's blood, and my martial talent far exceeds his. At this moment, Chen Dandan spoke hurriedly, trying to belittle the youth's talent as much as possible, deeply afraid that the old man would really take a fancy to the youth's talent and take him as a disciple. At that time, she would definitely die. However, while Chen Dandan was shouting, the black-robed old man standing in the void, surrounded by faint golden light, did not look at her at all. The old man looked at Zhou Donghuang and continued, at that time, although I was surprised that such a young man could appear in such a small place, I did not stay because of him. After all, in our Xianin sect, there are countless disciples of the younger generation whose cultivation is higher than his at his age. As the old man spoke, whether it was the valley head Su Mo, the valley head elder Yu Mei Qin, or the valley left sentinel Wang Tao and right sentinel Yu Wei, their expressions all changed. Xianin sect? Most people might not know of the existence of the Xianin sect, but as the pillars of the Valley of the Medicine Masters and having lived for a long time, the four of them had heard of the Xianin sect. The Xianin sect was one of the top sects in the Ziyun planet, and it was also one of the oldest sects in the Ziyun planet. Senior, are you Senior Qi Ming from the Xianin sect or Senior Zhongya? Su Mo asked as he bowed. As far as he knew, in the Xianin sect, there were two people who had entered the ultimate primal core stage. One of them was called Qi Ming, and he was only a little over 200 years old. The other was called Zhongya, and he was now close to 300 years old. I never thought that in such a small place, there would still be people who know of my name, Zhongya. Ha, ha ha ha. The old man laughed heartily, and his laughter echoed throughout the valley where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located. Greetings, Senior Zhongya. After the old man said his name, Su Mo, Yu Mei Qin, Wang Tao, and Yu Wei all bowed respectfully, their eyes filled with fear. Zhongya could be said to be the oldest group of adepts in the Ziyun planet, because in the past few hundred years, there had not been an adept who had reached the Dharma stage and above in the Ziyun planet. Xianin sect? Zhongya? Although the group of elders and disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters knew of the background of the primal core adept in front of them, they had no idea where he came from. However, even so, it did not affect their respect for this adept who had entered the primal core stage. In the history of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, there had never been a primal core adept. Of course, Zhou Donghuang had never heard of the Xianin sect. In his previous life, he had stayed on Earth for 100 years, and although he had returned to the Ziyun planet, he had returned directly to Yunyang country, one of the 16 countries of the East Valley. He only knew that there was a sect in the Ziyun planet called the Valley of the Medicine Masters that ruled over the 16 countries of the East Valley. He did not know anything about the other sections. Not long after I met him, I accidentally obtained a stalk of returning heaven grass. At this point, Zhongya's gaze once again landed on the young man. After obtaining the returning heaven grass, I was prepared to leave this small and desolate place. But I did not expect to sense his aura again when I was passing by this valley. At that time, I felt that we were fated to meet. Hearing Zhong Ye's words, Chen Dandan's face became even paler, and her delicate body began to tremble, her eyes filled with despair. Suddenly, Zhong Ye's gaze shifted from Zhou Donghuang to Chen Dandan. At that time, he happened to destroy this girl's meridians, and fearlessly waited for this girl's father to arrive. The mid-Khanate stage adept was easily killed by him using the sword sphere. After that, he controlled everything in the palm of his hand. Until, he was about to kill this girl. At this point, Zhong Ye's eyes narrowed slightly. The returning heaven grass is said to be able to reverse the heavens, and it can be used to refine the reversing heaven elixir. Anyone who consumes it, as long as they are still breathing, can regrow a severed arm or a severed leg. To the reversing heaven elixir, reshaping the meridians is child's play. At this point, Zhong Ye looked deeply at Chen Dandan, and when Chen Dandan heard Zhong Ye's words, the despair in her eyes disappeared and was replaced by a passionate look. Senior. Chen Dandan knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Zhong Ye. Even though her forehead was bleeding profusely, she did not care. As long as Senior is willing to give me the reversing heaven elixir, Chen Dandan will be at your service for the rest of my life. Zhong Ye ignored Chen Dandan and continued, I, Zhong Ye, have entered the ultimate primal core stage and become a golden essence adept more than 80 years ago, but I have not been able to progress further and enter the Dharma stage. In 10 years, if I do not enter the Dharma stage, my lifespan will come to an end. I left the Xianin sect and traveled around the Ziyun planet in search of a glimmer of hope to enter the Dharma stage. Since ancient times, to enter the Dharma stage, one does not have the talent, so fate is needed. Even if one does not have the talent, it is not impossible to enter the Dharma stage. The Dharma stage was the stage of martial practice above the primal core stage. Once a Khanate stage adept entered the primal core stage, his lifespan would increase to 300 years, and once a primal core adept entered the Dharma stage, his lifespan would increase by another 300 years. Dharma adepts could live up to 600 years, which was double the lifespan of a primal core adept. Zhong Ye, one of the 2 golden essence adepts of the Xianin sect, was 290 years old this year. If he did not break through in 10 years, he would die of old age. Because of this, he dreamed of entering the Dharma stage and extending his lifespan by 300 years. However, there was no point in being anxious about such matters, so he left the Xianin sect and traveled around the Ziyun planet. Recently, he had come to the border of the 16 countries of the East Valley and met Zhou Donghuang. Because of this, the scene that had unfolded before his eyes had happened. First, I met this young man, and then I obtained the return heaven herb. Then, I met this young man again, and I saw with my own eyes that he destroyed this woman's meridians. At that time, I was still watching coldly from the sidelines. Until this young man hinted to you to kill this woman. My thoughts were clear, and a thought flashed through my mind. I felt that this woman and the return heaven herb that I obtained were fated to be together. I stopped you from killing this woman because I wanted to take her away. If she dies, my thoughts will not be clear, and I will never be able to enter the Dharma stage. As Zhong Ye spoke, his gaze shifted from Su Mo to the young woman, whose face was filled with joy. Are you willing to follow me back to the Xianin sect and become my disciple? Yes. I am willing. The surprise came too quickly, and Chen Dandan's face flushed red. She hurriedly bowed to Zhong Ye 3 times. Chen Dandan greets teacher. Whoosh! Accompanied by the sound of the wind, Zhong Ye's figure flashed, and he disappeared from the sky like a ghost. When he reappeared, he was already beside Chen Dandan. Of course, Zhong Ye did not disappear into thin air, but because his speed was too fast, no one present could see him clearly. Even Su Mo, a late Khanate adept, could not see the traces of Zhong Ye's figure. What a clear mind! Just as Zhong Ye grabbed one of Chen Dandan's hands and brought her up into the sky, preparing to leave with Chen Dandan, Zhou Donghuang glanced at him. Your path to the Dharma stage was not wrong, but this Chen Dandan is someone that I, Zhou Donghuang, want to kill. Today, if you take her away, you will have formed a karmic bond with me. You, and the Xianin sect behind you, will have to bear this karmic bond. Have you thought it through? Zhou Donghuang looked at Zhongya's back indifferently. His tone was calm, and it was as if there was no emotion in it. Karmic bond? Zhongya turned back to look at Zhou Donghuang, and his lips curled into a disdainful smile. Do you think you are worthy of discussing karmic bond with me and the Xianin sect? When you are able to enter the ultimate primal core stage, then you can say these words in front of me. Perhaps then you will have some credibility. Right now, you are not worthy yet. As he spoke, Zhongya brought Chen Dandan far away, and in the blink of an eye, they disappeared from the field of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. To Zhongya, Zhou Donghuang was just someone who was lucky enough to obtain an opportunity left behind by an ordinary primal core adept. Furthermore, he could tell that the sword sphere in Zhou Donghuang's hand was at most the work of a mid-primal core adept. Chapter 155. Zhou Donghuang knew. In the eyes of the Xianin sect Golden Essence adept, he was no different from an ant. In fact, everyone from the Valley of the Medicine Masters, including Su Mo, was no different from an ant in his eyes. Even if Chen Dandan begged the old man to help them, the old man would not lower himself to help them, let alone the fact that the old man would not lower himself to help them. Teacher. Chen Dandan, who was brought up into the sky by Zhongya, only dared to open her eyes after a while. Her eyes flashed coldly as she said to Zhongya with hatred, I want Zhou Donghuang dead. Teacher, please help me kill him. Chen Dandan pleaded. A mere early Khanate adept, I would not lower myself to kill him. Zhongya said calmly, furthermore, I am now at the final stage of attaining the Dharma stage, and I need to be clear, if I lower myself to kill an early Khanate adept, it will inevitably hinder my thoughts and affect my attaining the Dharma stage. If you want to kill him, you can do it yourself in a few years. Follow me back to the Xianin sect, I will give the returning heaven grass to the sect's alchemist and let him make the returning heaven elixir. When the returning heaven elixir is ready, I will give you one to repair your meridians. After your meridians are repaired, follow me to train. As long as you do not slack off, you will definitely attain the Khanate stage in 5 years. If you work hard, you will attain the Khanate stage in 3 years. Zhongya said. 5 years? 3 years? Hearing Zhongya's words, Chen Dandan's first reaction was, why was it taking so long? Because Zhou Donghuang had only spent 2 years to go from a martial invalid to a Khanate adept. Of course, in front of the old man, Chen Dandan did not dare to question his words. Teacher. Chen Dandan changed the topic. That Zhou Donghuang, even if you do not kill him, you should at least take away his sword sphere, that is a good thing. An early Khanate adept, with that sword sphere, had intimidated the 3 mid-Khanate adepts of the Valley of the Medicine Masters into not daring to act rashly. This showed how terrifying that sword sphere was. That sword sphere? Zhongya laughed disdainfully. A sword sphere made by a mid-primal core adept is no different from trash in my eyes. When you step into the innate realm, I can personally refine an even better sword ball for you. Zhongya said it very casually, as if a mere sword sphere was nothing in his eyes. Chen Dandan's eyes lit up. The old man's words revealed a message. The treasures that Zhou Donghuang had obtained from a primal core adept were at most those left behind by a mid-primal core adept. And this teacher of hers was an ultimate primal core adept in the way of martial arts. The ultimate primal core stage was 2 whole levels higher than the middle primal core stage. The difference in power was like the difference between clouds and mud. Zhou Donghuang. Chen Dandan turned her head slightly and looked in the direction of the valley where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located, her eyes filled with murderous intent. When I, Chen Dandan, return from my cultivation, I will cut that Lin Lan into 1,000 pieces in front of you, and then I will cut you into 1,000 pieces. And that head of the Valley of Medicine Masters, Su Mo, since you are willing to be Zhou Donghuang's dog, I will send you on your way with your master. Medicine King Valley. The training grounds. After Su Mo borrowed the flying demon from head elder Yu Meichin of the Valley of the Medicine Masters and personally sent the youth dressed in white away, Yu Meichin and the other elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters also left. The two guardians of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Wang Tao and Yu Wei, after seeing Su Mo and the youth leave on the flying demon, also left. In an instant, only the disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters were left in the huge training grounds. And now, this group of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters were still extremely excited. I never thought that in my lifetime, I would be able to see a Primal Core Adept. In the past, I only heard that the legendary Primal Core Adepts could fly, but legends are legends after all, and deep in my heart, I did not really believe it, until today, when I personally saw that senior fly, I finally believed those legends. Me too. The appearance of the Primal Core Adept successfully attracted the attention of all the disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters present, and it completely stirred up their emotions. However, as the discussion of the Primal Core Adept gradually died down, the topic of their conversation once again shifted to the youth in white. That youth named Zhou Donghuang has actually been acknowledged as master by the Valley Head? If I had not seen it with my own eyes, even if you beat me to death, would not dare to believe that the high and mighty Valley Head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, the number one person in the periphery of the 16 countries of the East Valley, would actually acknowledge a 19-year-old youth as master. I really don't know what the Valley Head is thinking. No matter what the Valley Head is thinking, his thoughts are not something we can fathom. In fact, it was not only the group of disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters who found it hard to understand that the Valley Head, Su Mo, had acknowledged the youth as master. Even the group of elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters found it hard to understand. However, no matter what, the Valley Head was the Valley Head, and he was the sky of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. No matter what the Valley Head did, they had to support him unconditionally. From today onwards, our Valley of the Medicine Masters will have an existence above the Valley Head. He will be the true master of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. On this point, everyone in the Valley of the Medicine Masters knew very well. On the other side, Su Mo personally sent the youth back to the cave abode. Tell me about Zhongya's background. Just as Su Mo was about to take his leave, Zhou Donghuang called out to him. Zhongya was the old man who had taken Chen Dandan away earlier. Besides being an ultimate Primal Core Adept, he also seemed to be someone from the Xianin sect. Master. Hearing the youth mention Zhongya, Su Mo's expression suddenly became somewhat serious. Zhongya is one of the two elders of the Xianin sect. The two elders of the Xianin sect are both ultimate Primal Core Adepts. Zhongya is the older of the two, and the other is only a little over 200 years old, in the prime of his life. As for the Xianin sect, it is one of the strongest sects on the planet of Ziyun, and it is above the various empires. Following Su Mo's words, Zhou Donghuang not only understood the background of the Golden Essence Adept, Zhongya, but also gained a deeper understanding of the situation on the planet of Ziyun. Within the planet of Ziyun, the strongest were the sects, including the Xianin sect, and below them were the various empires. These empires were completely different from the small countries of the 16 countries of the East Valley. In these small countries, there might not even be a Khanate stage adept. And in these empires, there were not just ultimate Khanate adepts, but even ordinary Primal Core adepts. Our Valley of the Medicine Masters is located on the southeastern border of the Xinguang Empire. Because this area is remote and inaccessible, the Xinguang Empire has no intention of encroaching on this area. To the Xinguang Empire, the surrounding areas of the 16 countries of the East Valley that the Valley of the Medicine Masters controls are just rural and remote places. Moreover, there is nothing of value here, so it's not even worth it for them to send people to guard it and leave it to its own devices. It is also under these circumstances that the Valley of the Medicine Masters, after hundreds of years, has gradually developed to where it is today. The situation of the Guiyuan sect that controls the 14 countries of Nanjiang is similar to that of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Although the 14 countries of Nanjiang are also located on the southeastern border of the Xinguang Empire, they are in the south. And the 16 countries of the East Valley are in the east. These were Su Mo's exact words. On the planet of Ziyun, each of the great empires was attached to a powerful sect that stood at the top of the planet of Ziyun, and they belonged to that sect. The royal families of the great empires were only hereditary, and they were usually only responsible for the management of the empire. They did not have any military power to speak of. The military power that they possessed came from the top sects of the planet of Ziyun. On the planet of Ziyun, there are a total of 5 powerful sects that stand at the top of the planet of Ziyun. The Xianin sect is only one of them. Correspondingly, there are a total of 5 empires on the planet of Ziyun. The Xinguang Empire, which is closest to us, is attached to a sect called the Xinguang sect. The Xinguang sect is a Buddhist sect. Hearing Su Mo say this, Zhou Donghuang's eyes narrowed, and he immediately thought of the Buddhist essence that had already been integrated into his body. Could that Buddhist essence have been left behind by an ancestor of the Xinguang sect? It was no wonder that Zhou Donghuang thought so. This was because, among the 5 great empires of the planet of Ziyun, the empire closest to the 16 countries of the East Valley was the Xinguang Empire, and the Xinguang Empire was subordinate to a Buddhist sect, the Xinguang sect. Did you just say that there has not been a Dharma adept on the planet of Ziyun for hundreds of years? Zhou Donghuang asked. Yes. Su Mo nodded. It is now the year 1230 of the Ziyun era. Based on the Ziyun era, it is not difficult to know that the civilization of Ziyun began more than 1,200 years ago. A few hundred years ago, how many Dharma adepts did Ziyun appear? Zhou Donghuang asked. According to ancient records, there were only 2 people, and they weren't from the same era. As Su Mo spoke, he seemed to think of something, and his eyes flashed. One of them was from the Divine Light sect. That person was a martial arts genius from the Divine Light sect 700 years ago. He was close to 300 years old and had just entered the Dharma stage. At that time, the Divine Light sect's reputation on the Ziyun planet was as strong as the sun. However, in the 300 years that followed, that person stopped at the early Dharma stage and did not advance any further. It is said that before he reached the end of his life, he left the Divine Light sect and did not pass away in the Divine Light sect, leaving his Buddhist essence to the younger generation of the Divine Light sect. At this point, Su Mo could not help but sigh. Just this point alone made the image of that ancestor of the Ziyun planet much more prominent. I just don't know where he went to pass away in meditation. And after he passed away, has the Buddhist essence that he left behind been obtained by someone else? Chapter 156. After hearing Su Mo's words, Zhou Donghuang was completely certain. The Buddhist essence that he had obtained under the guidance of the 2 golden-crowned eagles had been left behind by the Dharma adept of the Divine Light sect after he had passed away. Whether it was the level of practice, the time, or the location, it all matched. Before the early Dharma adept of the Divine Light sect reached the end of his life, he had chosen to pass away on a dangerous peak in the 16 countries of the East Valley, not far from the Xinguang Empire. Master. Suddenly, Su Mo's expression became serious. That Chen Dandan has now become a disciple of Zhongye of the Xianin sect, and Zhongye has also obtained the Return Heaven herb that can be used to refine the Return Heaven elixir. With the Return Heaven elixir, Chen Dandan's destroyed meridians can be restored. After becoming a disciple of Zhongye, her level of practice will definitely advance by leaps and bounds. In the future, I'm afraid she will be a huge threat. As he spoke, Su Mo's eyes were filled with fear. After all, this time, he and the Valley of the Medicine Masters had offended Chen Dandan, and it was inevitable that Chen Dandan would come back for revenge. Chen Dandan? Hearing Su Mo mention the young girl who had been taken away by Zhongye of the Xianin sect, Zhou Donghuang's eyes narrowed, and a cold light flashed across them. What had happened today was beyond his expectations. In the history of his previous life, Chen Dandan had not had this opportunity, but had died of old age in the Valley of the Medicine Masters after attaining the Khanate stage. However, from what Zhongya said, the reason why Chen Dandan had such an opportunity was entirely because of me. Earlier, Zhongya had said that it was because he had seen Zhou Donghuang riding a great consummation flying demon across the sky that he had paid attention to Zhou Donghuang. Then, after he had obtained the Return Heaven herb, he had passed by the Valley of the Medicine Masters and sensed Zhou Donghuang's aura, which was why he had come to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. As for what had happened afterwards, it seemed logical. Chen Dandan, so what if your fate has changed because of me? If you are in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, I will go to the Valley of the Medicine Masters to kill you. Now that you have gone to the Xianin sect, I will go to the Xianin sect to kill you. When Zhou Donghuang suddenly opened his eyes, they were filled with a cold light. As for that Zhongya, since he wants to form a connection with the Xianin sect, I will destroy the Xianin sect in the future. Although Zhou Donghuang's words were spoken in a low voice, Su Mo, who was standing not far away, could hear them clearly. At that moment, Su Mo couldn't help but inwardly suck in a breath of cold air. He had never imagined that the master he had acknowledged would have such ambitions. Flatten the Xianin sect? Was that even possible? The Xianin sect was one of the 5 most powerful sects in the Ziyun planet, and it stood at the pinnacle of the Ziyun planet. Anyone who wanted to flatten the Xianin sect would need to be at least at the Dharma laws stage. Although the young man in front of him was only 19 years old, he had already reached the early stages of the Xian Tian stage. However, just as the ancestor of the Xianin sect, Zhongya, had said, in the Xianin sect, there were many people of his age who were more powerful than the young man in front of him. Even the disciples of the Xianin sect might not have the chance to step into the Dharma stage, let alone the youth in front of him. Therefore, Su Mo did not take the young man's harsh words to heart and only thought that the young man had said them in a moment of anger. After a while, the cold light in Zhou Donghuang's eyes faded, and he looked at Su Mo and asked, in the Xinguang Empire, should we be able to get spirit stones? Spirit stones were special stones formed from ordinary stones that had accumulated a large amount of spirit energy from the heavens and earth. Using spirit stones to practice could replace absorbing spirit energy from the heavens and earth, and the two could complement each other to make practice more efficient. Since there were many primal core adepts in the Xinguang Empire, it was impossible that they did not have spirit stones. As for the 5 top sects of the Ziyun planet, including the Xianin sect, they naturally had no lack of spirit stones. Zhou Donghuang even suspected that they controlled a vein of spirit stones, or else they would not have been able to establish such a sect. Today, Zhongya of the Xianin sect had said, in the Xianin sect, there were people of similar age but with higher levels of practice than him. Although there were not many of them, there were still quite a few. Those people must be the talented disciples of the Xianin sect who had piled up spirit stones. Spirit stones? Hearing Zhou Donghuang's words, Su Mo's eyes narrowed, and he smiled bitterly. Master, it is possible to get spirit stones in the Xinguang Empire, but it is very difficult. In the hundreds of years of history of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, only the founder of the sect, after attaining the ultimate Khanate stage, paid a huge price to exchange for a spirit stone on the black market of the Xinguang Empire. His original intention was to use that spirit stone to attain the primal core stage in one go and become a primal core adept. But, in the end, the spirit energy in the spirit stone was exhausted, and he was still unable to break through. Before he died of old age, he left behind a letter saying that if he had 3 spirit stones at that time, he would have been fully confident of attaining the primal core stage. At this point, Su Mo paused before continuing. Spirit stones are very precious. Even if the Valley of the Medicine Masters were to sell everything of value in the valley, we might not be able to exchange for 1 spirit stone on the black market of the Xinguang Empire. The black market of the Xinguang Empire? Zhou Donghuang's eyes flashed, and he asked bluntly, exchanging for spirit stones on the black market of the Xinguang Empire can guarantee the privacy of the trader? Master, you can rest assured on this. Su Mo said, the black market of the Xinguang Empire, as an intermediary, deals in trustworthiness. Back then, the founder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters chose to pay a huge price to exchange for spirit stones on the black market of the Xinguang Empire precisely because it was safe to exchange for spirit stones there. If he had taken another route, the price he paid for one spirit stone on the black market would have been enough to exchange for 2 spirit stones. If he had taken another route and paid the same price, although he could have exchanged for 2 spirit stones, it is very likely that he would have been killed just as he got the spirit stones. Su Mo finished in one breath. Zhou Donghuang nodded. In a month, come with me to the Xinguang Empire. I want to take a look at the black market that you speak of. Yes, master. Su Mo acknowledged respectfully. Also, during this time, you can stay here and practice. At first, Su Mo did not think much of the youth's words, but he felt that it was not appropriate to reject the youth, so he decided to practice here for a few days and then find an excuse to return to his residence to practice. But, not long after he sat down to practice, a layer of golden light extended from the wooden hut to his body, and he found that his practice was twice as effective with half the effort. The speed of his practice was more than double what it had been before. This master of mine, who is he? What kind of method is this? It can actually help me increase the speed of my practice by such a large margin. Su Mo's heart jumped. It must be known that when he had taken the Khanate elixir that the youth had formulated, he had already felt that his practice speed had increased significantly, and there was hope for him to attain the primal core stage. And now, under the cover of the golden light that extended from the wooden hut, his practice speed had increased even further, and it had more than doubled from its original foundation. If I can continue to take the Khanate elixir that Master has formulated, and if I can continue to practice by Master's side, in at most 10 years, I will definitely attain the primal core stage. Su Mo's eyes shone brightly, and he could not stop it. It was also at this moment that Su Mo's respect for the young master in the wooden hut grew, because he had already tightly linked his dream of attaining the primal core stage to him. But now, Su Mo did not know, although Zhou Donghuang had given him the power of the Buddhist essence to aid in his practice, the power he had given him was not even 1/10 of the power he had given to the golden-crowned eagle, Big Gold. The reason for this was that Zhou Donghuang had intentionally left something behind. The reason for this was, first, because Su Mo had not yet obtained his full approval, and second, because he wanted to leave enough power from the Buddhist essence to aid him in attaining the primal core stage. If Zhou Donghuang did all he could to give the power of the Buddhist essence to aid in Su Mo's practice, in at most 2 years, Su Mo would definitely attain the primal core stage. When I attain the middle Khanate stage, I will make a trip to the black market in the Xinguang Empire and exchange for some spirit stones. If I have spirit stones to use for practice, my practice will advance further. In the wooden hut, Zhou Donghuang, who had been practicing, suddenly opened his eyes, and his gaze was like a torch. If I have enough spirit stones to aid in my practice, and with the help of the Buddhist essence, I will definitely attain the primal core stage in less than a year. 2 years ago, I set the goal of attaining the primal core stage in 5 years. Now, as long as I have enough spirit stones, I will be able to attain the primal core stage within a year, and achieve the goal I set 2 years earlier. Even though Zhou Donghuang had 1,000 years' worth of memories from his previous life, when he thought of this, his heart was still stirred. Attaining the primal core stage and becoming a primal core adept meant that he would be able to use his inner yuan to travel through the air and traverse the stars with his physical body. At that time, he would be able to leave the planet of Ziyun and travel to other planets. A month's time was neither short nor long. In the blink of an eye, it had passed. After a month, everything in the Valley of the Medicine Masters had returned to normal, and gradually, fewer and fewer people brought up what had happened in the arena a month ago. Time was enough to wash away everything. Of course, even though fewer and fewer people brought up what had happened in the arena a month ago, the events of that time were still deeply engraved in the hearts of those who had been present. A primal core adept. And the young master of their valley head, Sumo Whoosh. A giant black eagle with a wingspan of more than 10 meters left the valley where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located like a bolt of black lightning. This giant black eagle's eyes were like lightning, and the golden crown on its head was like a deep burning flame. Master, your golden-crowned eagle has attained the Khanate stage? On the back of the giant eagle, a middle-aged man with a handsome face and dressed in a grey robe asked. Withdrawing his shocked gaze from the giant eagle, he looked at the back of the young man in a robe whiter than snow. Chapter 157. A few days before Zhou Donghuang entered the middle Khanate stage, the golden-crowned eagle, Big Gold, also successfully entered the Khanate stage and became a Khanate stage demon. After becoming a Khanate stage demon, Big Gold's body had grown even larger. When it spread its wings, it was more than 10 meters long, and its current speed was completely different from before it had broken through. This golden-crowned eagle has just broken through to the Khanate stage, and its speed is already comparable to that of my old friend. After receiving confirmation from the youth, Sumo, the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, looked at the golden-crowned eagle at his feet, and his eyes became dazed as he thought of the Khanate stage silver-crowned crane that the Valley of the Medicine Masters previously had. That silver-crowned crane had already died at the hands of its current master, Zhou Donghuang, half a year ago. Where is the black market of the Xinguang Empire? Zhou Donghuang asked Sumo as he looked down at the seemingly endless wilderness beneath the clouds. On the way out of the Valley of the Medicine Masters and towards the Xinguang Empire, all they could see were towering mountains and precipitous ridges, wilderness, and even small villages. Now, Zhou Donghuang could completely understand why the Xinguang Empire had given up on developing the 16 countries of the East Valley and made them part of the Xinguang Empire. The 16 countries of the East Valley were too remote. In the eyes of the Xinguang Empire, the 16 countries of the East Valley were barren mountains and unruly rivers, the kind that had no development value. Master. Sumo responded to Zhou Donghuang's question. The black market of the Xinguang Empire is in the capital of the Xinguang Empire. A few days ago, when I was practicing, I flipped through the personal letters left behind by the previous heads of the Valley of the Medicine Masters before they passed away, and I gained a better understanding of the black market of the Xinguang Empire. The black market of the Xinguang Empire is something that even the imperial court of the Xinguang Empire, and even the Xinguang sect behind the imperial court of the Xinguang Empire are unable to interfere. This is because the backing of the black market are the 5 top sects of the Ziyun planet, including the Xinguang sect. Among them is the Xianin sect. The existence of the black market is monitored by the 5 great sects, Meng Hao said. Occasionally, one of the sects will send someone to pretend to be doing business in the black market. If the person behind the scenes turns out to be a traitor, the sect behind the traitor will have to hand over 4,000 spirit stones to each of the other 4 sects, 1,000 spirit stones each. Under such circumstances, none of the 5 major sects would dare to steal from the black market. The black market has a total of 5 strongholds, and they are located in the capital cities of the 5 top sects of the planet of Ziyun. Sumo's words gave Zhou Donghuang a better understanding of the black market in the Xinguang Empire. It turned out that the so-called black market was set up by the 5 top sects of the Ziyun planet, and the annual profits of the black market were equally divided among the 5 top sections. The black market is very profitable. For example, let's say we want to exchange 2 spirit stones for something. Of the 2 spirit stones, one will be taken by the black market, and the other will be taken by the person who took it. At this point, Sumo couldn't help but click his tongue. Just like the founder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, the price he paid in the black market could actually be exchanged for 2 spirit stones, but because half of what he took out was eaten by the black market, the remaining half could only be exchanged for 1 spirit stone. As Sumo spoke further, Zhou Donghuang also learned the rules of the black market. The black market guaranteed the privacy of both the buyer and the seller. However, the buyer and seller who initiated the transaction also had to pay a hefty price. I really didn't expect that on this tiny planet of Ziyun, there would be such a market. Zhou Donghuang's heart skipped a beat as he thought to himself. This was because markets like the black market on the planet of Ziyun were not rare among the thousands of races in the universe. At its speed, how long would it take to travel from the Valley of the Medicine Masters to the capital of the Xinguang Empire? Zhou Donghuang asked Suemo, when the silver-crowned crane of the Valley of the Medicine Masters had just attained the Khanate stage and became a Khanate stage demon. I asked it to take me on a trip to the capital of the Xinguang Empire. That time, it took a little more than 3 months. Suemo replied, of that time, more than 2 months were spent on the journey from the Valley of the Medicine Masters to the southeastern border of the Xinguang Empire. When it reached the border of the Donghan corner of the Xinguang Empire, the silver-crowned crane, which had just attained the Khanate stage, spent about 20 days to reach the capital of the Xinguang Empire. At this point, Suemo couldn't help but sigh. The Valley of the Medicine Masters, and even the 16 countries of the East Valley, are too far from the Xinguang Empire, but it is precisely because of this that the 16 countries of the East Valley, and even the Valley of the Medicine Masters, have not been encroached upon by the Xinguang Empire. Zhou Donghuang had already guessed this point from Suemo, so he wasn't surprised. 3 months, Zhou Donghuang's eyes flashed, and then he sat down cross-legged and prepared to begin practicing. It looks like when I reach the capital of the Xinguang Empire, I have a chance of attaining the late Khanate stage. Even if I don't, by that time, my level of practice will definitely not be far from the late Khanate stage. Ever since he had formulated the Khanate elixir, Zhou Donghuang's progress in practice had been ridiculously fast. With the help of the Buddha's lifeblood in his body and the Lord of the Four Supremes, which was even more powerful than the Thousand-Star Sword Technique and the Fiery Thunder Training Regimen, Zhou Donghuang had successfully attained the middle Khanate stage a month or so after arriving in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. According to his calculations, he would be able to attain the late Khanate stage in about 3 months' time. And without the help of spirit stones, it would take at least half a year to practice from the late Khanate stage to the ultimate Khanate stage. As for practicing from the ultimate Khanate stage to the primal core stage, it would take even longer, at least a year, at most a year and a half, or even 2 years. And it was precisely because this method of practice was too slow that Zhou Donghuang was so anxious to obtain a batch of spirit stones to help him attain the primal core stage as soon as possible and become a primal core adept. For the rest of the journey until we reach the capital of the Xinguang Empire, if there's nothing that I must be woken up for, don't disturb my practice. After bidding farewell to Suemo, Zhou Donghuang immersed himself in practice, fully concentrating on the Lord of the Four Supremes. As he expended the power of the Khanate elixir in his body, the power of the Buddha's lifeblood also extended continuously and merged with the qi in his body. In the boundless universe, there were countless planets. Earth was one of them, and so was the planet of Ziyun. The planet of Tianxian was also one of them. However, whether it was Earth, the planet of Ziyun, or the planet of Tianxian, they did not belong to the same galaxy and were very far apart from each other. However, the distance between the galaxies was not considered far. The planet of Tianxian was located in a galaxy called the Luoha Galaxy. It was one of the larger planets in the Luoha Galaxy and had more resources for practice. Martial arts were prevalent there, and primal core adepts were as common as dogs. Khanate adepts were everywhere, and there were even quite a few Dharma adepts. Now, in the sky above a vast mansion on the planet of Tianxian, the atmosphere was tense. Hand over He Meng, or your entire family will be wiped out today. A skinny old woman dressed in a loose green robe stood in the air, staring coldly at the 3 people standing opposite her as she spoke in a low voice. On the old woman's body, there was the shadow of a giant ape that was 10 feet tall. This giant ape was extremely strong, and it was a stark contrast to the skinny old woman's body. It was constantly reaching out with its thick arms and beating its own chest with a dull thud. Now, the three people standing opposite her had blood dripping from the corners of their mouths, and their breathing was weak. On each of their bodies, there was a 30-foot-tall shadow. One was the shadow of a giant tiger, one was the shadow of a giant sword, and the last was the shadow of a flame. However, in front of the giant ape that was 30 feet tall, the three phantoms were like three 3-year-old children standing in front of an adult. The latter could easily beat the former up, and the former could not even fight back in the process. "Miss Luo, you have known my daughter, He Meng, for many years. Must you take her life?" Among the three of them, the middle-aged man with the image of a giant tiger on his body looked at the woman beside the green-robed old woman with a pleading expression. He asked with a bitter expression, she was indeed blinded by that matter. "Spare her this time, and I'll let her be your servant for 100 years. She'll be at your beck and call. How about that?" The woman before him was the top of the younger generation of the Luo family, the pride of the Luo family, and the future hope of the Luo family. His daughter was also the top of the younger generation of the He family, and the hope of the He family. Patriarch He, if He Meng does not appear in 10 breaths' time, from now on, the He family will cease to exist. The woman standing beside the old woman was dressed in a light green dress. She was about 20 years old, and her long hair flowed like a waterfall. Her eyebrows were like a painting, her nose was high, and her lips were bright red. She had a face that could topple cities, but at this moment, there was a chilly expression on her face. Her expression was indifferent, and her gaze was cold. Her voice did not seem to contain any emotion. Almost as soon as the woman finished speaking, "Luo Qinghan." Accompanied by a sharp voice, a woman in a light pink dress stood on the back of a flying monstrous beast. The flying monstrous beast rose into the sky from the mansion below. It stood in the distance and stared at the woman in the green dress from afar. "Young sect master Yuan is handsome, and his talent in the martial Dao is above yours. I, He Meng, have pursued him for many years, but I'm unable to get him. That day, I did all that in order to help you and him be together. I wanted your Luo clan to be connected to him and the sect behind him. You, don't be so ungrateful." The woman in the pink dress stood on the back of the flying demon, and her eyes were filled with indignation. She had never thought that the man who had promised to protect her would not show up. Obviously, he had given up on her. In his eyes, I am ultimately just a pawn. The woman's heart was filled with disappointment. Chapter 158. You're still being unreasonable at a time like this? Hearing He Meng's quibble, Luo Qinghan's eyes turned even colder. With a flash of her body, she flew out like a ghost and appeared not far from the girl in pink who was riding on the flying demon. Silver light surrounded her body and she exuded a sharp aura. Sui_Meng, you have entered the late primal core stage? Only then did He Meng clearly see the silver light surrounding Luo Qinghan's body. Her expression changed in an instant, her eyes filled with shock and disbelief. If her memory served her right, Mr. Luo Qinghan was only 22 years old now, but had already entered the late primal core stage and become a silver essence adept. Even the man He Meng liked, who was said to be more talented than Luo Qinghan, had only reached the late primal core stage at the age of 25. How could Luo Qinghan advance from the early primal core stage to the late primal core stage in such a short period of time? He Meng couldn't figure it out. Based on the martial arts talent that Luo Qinghan had displayed in the past, it was already incredible that she had entered the mid-primal core stage. Thanks to you. As Luo Qinghan laughed coldly, the milky white halo around her body gradually became clearer. Xiao. With a flick of Luo Qinghan's sleeve, a silver thread made entirely of inner yuan whizzed out and headed straight for He Meng's brow. It was so fast that He Meng, who had not even attained the primal core stage, could not react at all. Menger. The expression of the middle-aged man who had pleaded with Luo Qinghan changed drastically when he saw that Luo Qinghan had used a killing move against his daughter. The 30-meter-tall phantom of a giant tiger suddenly opened its bloody mouth, and its entire body tensed up, as if it could pounce out at any time. He Jin, if you dare to make a move, from today onwards, your He clan will be completely erased from the mysterious sky star. The old woman who had come with Luo Qinghan sounded calm, but there was a hidden killing intent in her voice. At the same time, the 30-meter-tall giant ape phantom that had appeared on her body was waving its strong arms and beating its chest at an even faster speed. Its eyes were filled with a cold and vicious light. Patriarch, you mustn't attack. Patriarch, let young Miss bear the responsibility for the trouble she caused. Don't let her fault implicate the family. As soon as the old woman finished speaking, the other two old men beside He Jin, the head of the He family, hurriedly stopped He Jin. At the same time, the 30-meter-tall sword and 30-meter-tall flame silhouettes that appeared on their bodies also stirred in a timely manner, blocking the path of the 30-meter-tall giant tiger silhouette. Regardless of whether it was He Jin's 30-meter-tall tiger phantom, or the two elders' 30-meter-tall sword phantom and 30-meter-tall flame phantom, they were all their Dharma forms. Adepts at the Dharma stage could activate the primal core in their bodies and create a Dharma power to fight against their enemies. The higher the level of practice, the stronger the Dharma power. 3-foot Dharma power was the hallmark of a mid-Dharma adept. The He family was considered a respectable family on the Tianxian planet. The strongest members of the family were the 3 mid-Dharma adepts present. It was precisely because of the existence of these 3 Dharma adepts that the He family was able to dominate a part of the Tianxian planet. However, the old woman who had come with Luo Qinghan today was one of the 2 late Dharma adepts of the Luo family, which was even stronger than the He family. Just now, the old woman had attacked and injured the 3 mid-Dharma adepts of the He family in just a few rounds. The difference in power was too great, and the 3 members of the He family could not resist at all. Young Miss Luo, have mercy. Accompanied by an old voice coming from the He family mansion below, a 10-meter-tall Dharma power flew out from the He family mansion. It was the shadow of a machete, and in a flash, it appeared in front of He Meng, blocking Luo Qinghan's attack. At the same time, under this 10-meter-tall machete shadow, the figure of an old man also appeared at the right time. Humph. Seeing that someone had blocked Luo Qinghan's attack, the expression of the old woman who had come with Luo Qinghan turned cold. In the instant that she let out a cold snort, the 10-meter-tall shadow of a giant ape that appeared behind her rushed out with a fierce look in its eyes. Its mountain-like body looked clumsy, but its speed was ridiculously fast. In the blink of an eye, before the 3 mid-Dharma adepts of the He family could react, the shadow of the giant ape had already rushed in front of the old man in front of He Meng. Whoosh! The giant ape's strong arm swung up, and a palm whistled through the air, directly grabbing the 3-meter-tall shadow of the machete that had appeared behind the old man. Boom! Boom boom boom! As the giant ape's palm tightened on the machete instantly shattered, and the old man, who had lost the protection of his Dharma power, was directly crushed by the giant ape's palm, dead. A mere early Dharma adept was completely vulnerable in front of a late Dharma adept. 5th Elder. He Jin's expression changed, and the 2 old men beside him also had ugly expressions. 5th Elder. He Meng's face was pale. She had never imagined that her mistake would not only harm herself, but also harm this old man who had loved her dearly and treated her like his own granddaughter. He Meng, if you had stepped forward earlier to take on this responsibility, you would not have implicated others. In the instant that the old man died, Luo Qinghan's eyes flashed with a look of pity, and then her gaze turned cold again. A silver thread once again whistled through the air, piercing through He Meng's brow as easily as breaking a twig, killing her. Granny, let's go. Just as the old woman killed the old man who had blocked Luo Qinghan's attack, her gaze turned even colder, and she was about to further settle the score with the He family. Luo Qinghan spoke up. The main culprit is dead, this matter, let's leave it at that. All right. Hearing Luo Qinghan's words, the old woman subconsciously looked at her, and the coldness in her eyes disappeared, replaced by a thick look of affection. In a moment, just as she turned to leave with Luo Qinghan, the old woman turned back again and coldly glanced at the 3 members of the He family. If not for my Qinghan's kindness, I would have directly destroyed the He family today. Thank you, Miss Luo, for showing mercy. The 2 old men beside He Jin, the patriarch of the He family, hurriedly thanked the young lady who had her back to them, and the corners of their lips curled up in a bitter and helpless smile. The old woman beside Luo Qinghan was too powerful. Her level of practice was high, and the Dharma power that she had condensed was extremely domineering. Looking at the entire Tianxian planet, there were not many late Dharma adepts who could match her. Most importantly, such a powerful person was also the biological grandmother of Luo Qinghan, the young mistress of the Luo family. And it was precisely because of Luo Qinghan's existence that this powerful person had lowered herself to stay in the Luo family, and did not join a force stronger than the Luo family in the Tianxian planet to enjoy better treatment. Qinghan. After leaving the He family household, the old woman looked lovingly at the beautiful girl in the green dress beside her. You, really don't need Granny to fetch that little fellow from the Xian planet? Granny, you're spouting nonsense again. Luo Qinghan frowned slightly and said unhappily, I only met him by chance, that time, it was just an accident. In the future, there will be no more interactions between me and him. Since you feel that you will not have any interactions with him in the future, then Granny will make a trip to the Xian planet and kill him. A murderous look flashed in the old woman's eyes, and she laughed coldly. How dare he taint my granddaughter's innocence? If I don't kill him, I will not be able to appease the hatred in my heart. Granny. Luo Qinghan's expression changed as if she had been shocked. Don't be rash. I've told you many times, that time between me and him was really just an accident. If you really want to talk about it, he is the victim. Don't kill the innocent and wrongly kill a good person. Huh. Granny was just joking, why are you so anxious? Do you already have him in your heart? The old woman laughed, and the murderous look in her eyes disappeared, replaced by a mocking look. If you really like him, Granny will fetch him from the Xian planet, and then you can go through the ceremony and get married. If I can witness your marriage on behalf of your mother, when I reach the underworld in the future, I will be able to answer to her. Granny, what nonsense are you talking about? You are only close to 500 years old now, and you still have more than 100 years to break through to the primordial soul stage. You will definitely be able to do so. Luo Qinghan said unhappily. The primordial soul stage? The old woman shook her head. If Granny can see you get married and enter the ultimate Dharma stage before I die at 600 years old, I will have no regrets. The last time a primordial soul adept appeared on the Tianxian planet was already 1,000 years ago. Granny, Qinghan has faith in you. Luo Qinghan looked at the old woman seriously, her gaze extremely determined. Alright, let's not talk about this for now, the old woman smiled and shook her head. Then, her expression turned serious, and she asked seriously, Girl, are you sure that the lad is really just from the Xian planet? Yes. Luo Qinghan nodded. He is just from a small place on the Xian planet. In that small place, he is considered a martial arts prodigy, but on the stage of the entire Xian planet, he is only considered average. At that time, he was at least 16 or 17 years old, but he had not even entered the Khanate stage. That's strange. The old woman frowned slightly. Not long after you returned to the Xian planet, you specially went to investigate. There is not even a Dharma adept there, and it is a backward planet with only 5 small, inferior quality spirit stone veins. That kind of backward planet, logically speaking, it is impossible for someone with such a noble bloodline to appear. After her granddaughter had a night with a lad from the Xian planet who had not even entered the Khanate stage, her training speed had increased by leaps and bounds, as if her talent had increased by leaps and bounds overnight. There could only be one reason for this situation, the boy who had a night of pleasure with her granddaughter was still a virgin before he got together with her granddaughter. Furthermore, he was of noble bloodline, and his martial arts talent far exceeded her granddaughter's, which was why he was able to change her granddaughter's martial arts talent as if it was against the heavens. Chapter 159. I don't know if his bloodline is noble or not. Hearing the old woman's words, Luo Qinghan frowned slightly and said, but his martial talent should not be that great, otherwise, he would not be only at the qi gathering stage at the age of 16 or 17. She also knew what her grandmother was thinking. Therefore, she was certain that the reason why her martial arts talent had improved so drastically was because of the time when she had sex with the youth on the planet of Ziyun. Furthermore, that time was the youth's first time for both her and him. It should be that there is a noble bloodline in his blood, but it has not been awakened. If that's the case, everything can be explained. The old woman guessed. If that's the case, your luck is really not bad, lass. As she said this, the old woman could not help but laugh. You call this not bad luck? Luo Qinghan laughed bitterly. If you were given a chance to choose, would you prefer to do it with him again and improve your martial talent, or would you prefer that nothing happened? The old woman looked at Luo Qinghan deeply and asked, a woman's chastity is important. But I think, in exchange for your current martial talent, it is worth it. Hearing the old woman's words, Luo Qinghan fell silent again. Although she did not reject the former. However, she asked herself, what's wrong? Even if she didn't reject the former, it didn't seem to be because the other party could help her improve her martial arts talent and cause her martial arts talent to undergo a complete transformation. If it was someone else, she would rather give up her martial arts talent than give up her chastity. Back then, after leaving the planet of Ziyun, before Luo Qinghan discovered that her martial talent had improved, she could not help but think of that handsome youth, whose eyes were full of vicissitudes of life that did not match his age, every time she had free time. Even if she did not want to admit it, it could not change the fact that the youth had already taken root in her heart and even in her mind. Perhaps it is because he took away my first time, and I do not have any ill feelings towards him. Luo Qinghan had thought of this more than once. At least there was one thing that Luo Qinghan was very sure of, she did not reject that youth. Occasionally, when she thought of that young man, the corners of her mouth would involuntarily curl up into a smile. Of course, she had been told this by someone else. Ziyun Planet. The Xinguang Empire. After 3 months, Zhou Donghuang finally arrived at the capital of the Xinguang Empire with the golden-crowned eagle, Big Gold. At the same time, he was awakened by Su Mo, who was behind him. We've arrived? When Zhou Donghuang opened his eyes, he could see a vast and majestic city in front of him. It was like a huge beast lying there. Evidently, this was the capital of the Xinguang Empire. Master, let's find an inn to stay in first before we decide on our next step. Su Mo suggested as Big Gold circled outside the capital of the Xinguang Empire. Okay, make the arrangements. Zhou Donghuang nodded. It just so happens that I've brought out all the gold notes printed by the Xinguang Empire from the Valley of the Medicine Masters. We can stay in a better inn. Su Mo laughed. Although there were gold notes in circulation in the surrounding regions of the 16 countries of the East Valley, they were printed by the Valley of the Medicine Masters themselves. And in the surrounding regions of the 16 countries of the East Valley, the Valley of the Medicine Masters did not allow any country to privately print gold notes. Only it could print gold notes. If any country in the 16 countries of the East Valley wanted gold notes, they had to send gold to the Valley of the Medicine Masters in exchange. The countries of the 16 countries of the East Valley only had the authority to print silver notes. However, in the Xinguang Empire, the gold notes printed by the Valley of the Medicine Masters did not have any value in circulation. In the Xinguang Empire, even Su Mo, the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, could only use real money as currency if he did not have the gold notes printed by the imperial court of the Xinguang Empire. However, many of the previous heads of the Valley of the Medicine Masters had gone to the Xinguang Empire, so the Valley of the Medicine Masters had a large stock of gold notes printed by the Xinguang Empire. On the planet of Ziyun, real money was the most widely circulated currency, and the currency above that was spirit stones. However, on the planet of Ziyun, under normal circumstances, no amount of real money could be exchanged for a spirit stone, unless someone took out the spirit stone to exchange for real money. Spirit stones were priceless items in the real gold and silver market. Master, there are some places in the Xinguang Empire where flying beasts are not allowed to enter. Please instruct your golden-crowned eagle on this point. Su Mo reminded him before the golden-crowned eagle, Big Gold, flew into the capital of the Xinguang Empire. As they neared the capital of the Xinguang Empire, Zhou Donghuang saw many flying beasts flying into the sky above the capital of the Xinguang Empire. At the same time, there were also many flying beasts flying in and out of the sky above the capital of the Xinguang Empire. There are so many people. Zhou Donghuang had thought that the number of people flying in and out of the sky on flying beasts was already considered a lot, but when he looked down, he realized that there were even more people going in and out of the gates of the capital of the Xinguang Empire. Some were walking, while others were riding on beasts. Primal Core Adept. Suddenly, Zhou Donghuang heard Su Mo's exclamation. Instinctively following Su Mo's gaze, Zhou Donghuang saw a middle-aged man in a long blue robe flying through the air into the capital of the Xinguang Empire. This middle-aged man's body was surrounded by a faint white halo that was slightly sparse. An early Primal Core Adept. It was not difficult for Zhou Donghuang to see that this middle-aged man in the blue robe was an early Primal Core Adept. At the same time, Zhou Donghuang also realized that the middle-aged man in the blue robe flying through the air into the capital of the Xinguang Empire did not attract much attention. Only he and Su Mo were staring at him. Instead, it was Su Mo's exclamation that had attracted the attention of many people who were riding flying beasts in and out of the capital of the Xinguang Empire. Most of them only glanced at Su Mo and Zhou Donghuang before looking away. However, a middle-aged man who was also riding an eagle-type beast with a wingspan of more than 10 meters said with a mocking smile, "From the countryside? Never seen a Primal Core Adept? What a fuss, what a joke. I'm making a fuss, what does it have to do with you?" After all, Su Mo was the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters and a late Khanate adept. Being mocked in his face, he naturally could not take it, and he glanced coldly at the other man and said in a flat tone. "What? You're obviously from the countryside, and you won't let me say so?" The middle-aged man's face suddenly turned cold, and the chi from his body whistled out at the right time. It was at least 3 feet long, and it was obvious that he was a middle Khanate adept. Seeing this, Su Mo faintly smiled and retracted his gaze. It was just a middle Khanate adept, and if he continued to be entangled with him, it would seem like he was in the wrong. After all, he was a late Khanate adept whose level of practice was close to the ultimate Khanate stage. However, Su Mo did not intend to quibble with the other party, but the other party obviously had no intention of letting the matter rest. With a cold look in his eyes, he rode his giant eagle, which was also an early Khanate stage beast like the golden-crowned eagle, towards Big Gold at high speed. At the same time, the middle-aged man had a sinister smile on his face as he struck out at Big Gold with his palm. A 3-foot-long green palm whizzed out and was about to land on Big Gold. The scene before him was too sudden. By the time Big Gold regained its senses, the middle-aged man's palm containing 3 feet of chi was already nearing, and it had nowhere to run. It could only frantically cry out to the youth on its back for help. "Young master, save me." Just as Zhou Donghuang's face turned cold and he was about to strike back at the middle-aged man on the eagle beast's back. "You're asking for it." With an angry roar, Su Mo attacked before Zhou Donghuang could. His right hand slashed through the air, his index and middle fingers pressed together, and he pointed out. Swish! The ray of chi shot out from Su Mo's fingertip and pierced through the air. In the blink of an eye, it had grown 10 feet long, and not only had it easily destroyed the middle-aged man's 3-foot palm of chi, it had also pierced through the head of the eagle beast the middle-aged man was riding on. No, with the death of the eagle beast, the middle-aged man's expression changed. At the same time, he instinctively shook his legs, and the 3 feet of chi under his feet exploded. Using the momentum of the dead eagle, he leaped towards Big Gold. Obviously, the middle-aged man wanted to hold on to Big Gold in order to stay in the air. Otherwise, with his current height, even if he used the dead eagle demonic beast as his meat cushion, he would still have a slim chance of survival. Even if he survived, he would definitely become a cripple. Because of this, he made the right decision in the blink of an eye. He wanted to hold on to Big Gold to avoid falling from the sky. Go down. Faced with the middle-aged man leaping towards him, Sumo's eyes flashed with murderous intent, and he pointed out again, passing through the middle-aged man's hand that was flying towards Big Gold. Crack! The ray of chi shot out from Sumo's finger and pierced through the middle-aged man's wrist, leaving a hideous bloody hole. Then, his entire hand dropped, and his entire body fell from the sky. No, the middle-aged man's shrill scream rang out. Bang! A moment later, there was a loud crash from below. The middle-aged man fell directly outside the walls of the capital of the Xinguang Empire, smashing into a pile of flesh and blood. Whoosh! While the surrounding group of people riding on flying beasts had their flying beast circle in place to watch, the golden-crowned eagle, Big Gold, was already frightened. It flapped its wings and flew at top speed into the capital of the Xinguang Empire. As Zhou Donghuang and Su Mo were brought into the capital by the golden-crowned eagle, an old man on the back of a flying beast looked at the back of the golden-crowned eagle and murmured, "These two are in trouble. The person who just died seems to be Yang Wei of the Yang family?" That's right. It is the 8th elder of the Yang family, Yang Wei. Chapter 160. After entering the capital of the Xinguang Empire and finding an inn to stay in, Zhou Donghuang left with Su Mo. He had only one goal in coming to the Xinguang Empire this time, to get a batch of spirit stones. At least, he had to get enough spirit stones to allow him to attain the primal core stage in the shortest time possible. The spirit stones of the planet of Ziyun all come from the 5 spirit stone lodes of the planet of Ziyun. These 5 spirit stone lodes are controlled by the top 5 sects of the planet of Ziyun, including the Xinguang sect and the Xianin sect. Of the 5 spirit stone veins, the one with the highest output produces about 2,000 spirit stones every year. The one with the smallest output produces about 1,300 spirit stones every year. Because of this, the 5 sects have jointly decided on the punishment for disrupting the black market. 4,000 spirit stones is not a small sum to any of the sections. After arriving at the capital of the Xinguang Empire, Zhou Donghuang had a better understanding of the situation regarding the spirit stone resources of the planet of Ziyun. There were only 5 spirit stone lodes on the planet of Ziyun. Furthermore, they were all very small lodes. The total annual output of the 5 spirit stone lodes did not even exceed 10,000 spirit stones. Because of this, spirit stones were extremely rare on the planet of Ziyun. Indeed, the spirit energy in the air of any planet determines the amount of spirit stones on that planet, Zhou Donghuang said to himself. Although the practice environment of the planet of Ziyun far surpasses that of Earth during the Age of Chaos, compared to those planets with many adepts, it can only be considered average, Zhou Donghuang said to himself. 5 such small inferior quality spirit stone lodes, it is basically impossible for them to produce mid-quality spirit stones. Although on the planet of Ziyun, spirit stones were spirit stones, and there was no distinction between inferior quality, mid-quality, or top quality, Zhou Donghuang knew that the spirit stones of the planet of Ziyun were only the lowest grade of spirit stones, inferior quality spirit stones. The 5 spirit stone lodes controlled by the Xinguang sect, the Xianin sect, and the other sects were also inferior quality spirit stone lodes, and it was impossible for them to produce mid-quality spirit stones. On some of the planets in the universe that were rich in spirit stone resources, there were many large inferior quality spirit stone lodes that could more or less produce mid-quality spirit stones. The higher the grade of the spirit stone, the more abundant the spirit chi stored in it. Moreover, the purity of the spirit chi would also be higher, and the effect of assisting cultivation would be better. Of course, I can't hope to obtain mid-quality spirit stones on the planet of Ziyun now. As long as I have enough inferior quality spirit stones, I will definitely attain the primal core stage in 9 months. Zhou Donghuang's eyes shone with confidence, and he let Su Mo lead the way to the black market stronghold in the capital of the Shengguang Empire. The black market in the capital of the Shengguang Empire was located in the northwest corner of the capital. It was a building that occupied a vast area. The building had only 1 floor and looked very ordinary from the outside. It was impossible to tell that this was a common property of the 5 main sections. 2 people, the entrance fee is 200 gold taels. At one of the main doors of the black market stood a few middle-aged men dressed in black with cold expressions. After blocking Zhou Donghuang and Su Mo, one of them said coldly. Hearing this, Su Mo casually handed over a gold note worth 100 taels. Only then did the middle-aged men in black at the entrance of the black market let them in. This black market is really shady, the entrance fee is 100 gold taels per person. As they followed Zhou Donghuang into the black market, Su Mo could not help but complain. People who go to the black market to find people to do business with will not be short of 100 gold taels. Zhou Donghuang could completely understand this. Setting up such a threshold is also to prevent people from going in to join in the fun. Only people who really need it will be willing to spend 100 gold taels as an entrance fee. That's true. Su Mo nodded. After entering the main door of the black market, there was a long and narrow passageway. At the end of the passageway, 4 young women dressed like servant girls stood on either side. In their hands, they each carried a stack of black robes. Guests, when entering the square of the black market, you need to wear the same black robes and hooded hoods to conceal your identity. Hearing this, Zhou Donghuang and Su Mo each took a black robe and put it on, covering themselves up so tightly that if they did not look closely, they would not even be able to see what the other party looked like. As they passed through the passageway, the view before them suddenly widened, and a square filled with people appeared before them. There were many people gathered in the square, and there were also many buildings and decorations around the square to confuse one's vision. As people passed through the square, if you were staring at a person one moment, you might not be able to see that person the next moment, unless you were closely following that person. However, in this black market, even people who came together had to separate after entering the square and were not allowed to travel together. As Zhou Donghuang and Su Mo walked out of the passageway, they saw a warning written in bright red on a conspicuous wall outside the passageway: upon entering the square of the black market, no one is allowed to travel together, and violators will be killed without mercy. Now, in the square of the black market, there was not only a group of people in hooded black robes moving about alone, but there were also some people in casual clothes walking back and forth, their eyes vigilantly watching their surroundings. They were obviously the people who maintained order in the black market. Some of these people were middle-aged men, while others were elderly. Master, it is said that the people who maintain order in the black market of the Shengguang Empire are all, without exception, primal core adepts of the Shengguang sect. Of course, they are mostly early primal core adepts. Before they separated, Su Mo said to Zhou Donghuang, also, it is said that the person in charge of the black market is a silver essence adept of the Shengguang sect. A silver essence adept was also a late primal core adept. Zhou Donghuang nodded slightly and said, "Let's go." With that, Zhou Donghuang took the lead and headed in one direction of the black market square, weaving through the crowd and some of the buildings and decorations, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Now, even if Su Mo wanted to go in and look for Zhou Donghuang, he would not be able to find him. The hooded black robes issued by the black market were designed to be a little loose at the back, and it was impossible to recognize a person from the back, unless that person spoke and revealed their identity. However, in the black market, there were very few people who would speak first. Even if there were people who spoke, they would deliberately keep their voices down, for everyone was worried that their identity would be revealed and they would be killed. After all, the items that could be traded in the black market were all relatively valuable. Spirit stones. After Zhou Donghuang entered the black market square, he began to wander around, and at the same time, he saw a number of independent wooden huts. Some of the wooden huts had signs hanging on them, and on them were the contents of the trades made by the people inside the wooden huts. Half a horn of a Khanate stage single-horned rhinoceros in exchange for a liter of blood from a Khanate stage scaled demon. Zhou Donghuang walked past a wooden hut and saw the very conspicuous words written on the sign above the wooden hut. Half a horn of a Khanate stage single-horned rhinoceros. The person inside must have brought a horn with him to trade, but after the trade is successful, he has to hand over the other half of the horn to the black market. Zhou Donghuang thought to himself. Spirit stones? As he passed by the second wooden hut, Zhou Donghuang stopped in his tracks. This was because someone in this wooden hut was using spirit stones to trade for something. One spirit stone in exchange for a pair of sharp claws of an ultimate Khanate stage flying demon. The higher the level of practice of a Khanate stage demon, the stronger its body would become. Weapons forged from the sharp claws of an ultimate Khanate stage flying demon would basically be invincible, unless it was forged by a primal core adept using the Samadhi fire. The spirit stones of the planet of Ziyun are worth so much? Just one spirit stone in exchange for a pair of sharp claws of an ultimate Khanate stage flying demon? As Zhou Donghuang thought to himself, he continued walking forward. On some of the planets that he had been to in his previous life, a pair of sharp claws of an ultimate Khanate stage flying demon could not be exchanged for without at least 5 inferior quality spirit stones. Of course, Zhou Donghuang knew that the person in the wooden hut had paid 2 spirit stones. However, one of the spirit stones had to be handed over to the black market after the trade was completed. But even so, he was still more aware of the rarity of spirit stones on the planet of Ziyun. This wooden hut, Zhou Donghuang passed by the third wooden hut, and on the sign outside was a line of words, "There is no one in the hut. Customers may remove the sign and enter to trade." Obviously, only the middleman of the black market was in this wooden hut. The fourth wooden hut did not have a sign outside. Someone is already trading inside. In the corner of the black market, there was a row of hundreds of wooden huts. Although many of them used spirit stones to trade, Zhou Donghuang did not have what they wanted. Let's go take a look somewhere else. Zhou Donghuang once again passed by a row of buildings and furnishings that obscured his vision, and he came to another corner of the black market square. There was also a row of wooden huts here. Now, there were many people dressed in black robes and hoodies like him walking in front of these wooden huts. Occasionally, someone would stop and look at the sign outside the wooden huts, but most people would just stop and take a look before continuing on their way. It was very rare to see someone remove the sign and enter the wooden hut. After passing by a few wooden huts, Zhou Donghuang stopped in front of a wooden hut. On the wooden hut in front of him, there was a sign that said, 100 spirit stones in exchange for perfecting the formula for the qi-gathering elixir that can increase the sensitivity to qi by 12 times. The formula for the qi-gathering elixir is incomplete by nearly 30%. Those who are confident can remove the sign and enter. 100 spirit stones, this is really a big deal. Zhou Donghuang smiled calmly as he walked forward and removed the sign outside the wooden hut. Then, he pushed the door open and entered the wooden hut, closing the door behind him. Zhou Donghuang's actions attracted the attention of the few people who had just passed by the wooden hut. They all stopped in their tracks and looked at the wooden hut that Zhou Donghuang had just closed. Someone went in. That is the formula for the qi-gathering elixir that can increase the sensitivity to qi by 12 times, on the planet of Ziyun. is there anyone who can complete it? On the planet of Ziyun, the best qi gathering elixir currently can only increase the sensitivity to qi by 10 times. 100 spirit stones is not so easy to earn. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.